Library studio.
Hey there, Marjorie. How are you?
Oh, and we are also streaming, correct?
We are?
Yes, we are.
I'm not helping you out. What are we streaming on?
YouTube.com/GBH News.
Very impressive, Marjorie. It's time for our monthly segment of Ask the Mayor with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. She joins us, by the way, with a mere 1,251 days left in her term. That's correct.
That's
Am I
right.
not?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yesterday.
If you have a question you'd like to ask her, give us a buzz or text us at 877-301-8970. You can tweet us at BOS Public Radio. And if you're here in person at the BPL and want to ask the mayor a question, find our colleague Gia. Gia, do you want to raise your hand over there? Go to Gia and we'll see if we can get you on. And we want to welcome here to the library a group of high school students from around the country and the world studying policy and communications as part of the Harvard Chan Sea Change Youth Summit on Climate, Equity, and Health. Welcome to them and to the mayor. Mayor, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for joining us, guys. So I did not bring food this time.
Oh, that's okay. Very disappointing.
I brought, these are maybe collector's items. These are pins that we had as leftovers from our inauguration party. So this is probably the only inauguration party in the history of the city that was postponed 4 separate times.
Oh my God.
Well, this is actually very nice.
These are very nice. You notice the mayor brings things every time and we fall down on the job
Yeah,
every
but
time.
you know, did you hear her say they were leftovers? So, I mean, it's not that
No,
impressive.
that's sort of, this is great for the
Mayor.
time capsule.
That's right.
For the
really
time
appreciate
capsule.
it. Very kind of you. Thanks so much.
So, Mayor, well, let's get to something that we're getting a lot of inquiry about is what's going on with the T. You were on BUR the other day talking about not tolerating tinkering on the edges, a much bigger disruption to service, and people are wondering exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I think there's 2 pieces that are kind of relevant this week. One is that we all know Boston really is impacted by the T. There are many cities that are in the service area, but we make up the largest share of the bus stops and T stops and ridership as well. And Boston, for many years now, has not had a direct voice in governance whatsoever. And so the legislature, through their budget process, actually advanced a provision that would give Boston a seat directly on the MBTA board. The governor had come back with some revisions to that, so we'll see how it shakes out in the last couple of days of negotiations up at the State House. But one very exciting item is that Boston could potentially have a more direct role in even shaping that policy, which I think is so important for our residents as this issue affects everything else. In terms of the T and what the challenges are, I mean, we have trains running that are decades beyond their useful life. The tracks are out of date. The signals haven't been upgraded in decades and are far short of the digital technology that's available. It's still requiring a lot of staff power to manage and maintain all the older equipment that we have. And so we've seen the T more and more start to do some minor things on the weekends or a short stretch at a time, but it's at the point now where we need to talk about what the actual solution is, do something big now, and I think the public will understand if we can get it done right, get it done, and then it will actually have an impact, as opposed to stretching on indefinitely this pain of, okay, we're going to fix a little bit here, a little bit there, and then it never seems like we're getting anywhere.
So what does big mean? Give us an example or two of what that might mean, to use your word, Mayor.
So the Orange Line is one of the lines that has the oldest track, or the sort of most remaining track that still needs to be updated, and signal upgrades. And as a regular rider, I've known that over the past several years, there have been slow zones, right? You'll get on the train, it finally comes, it's crowded, and then you're inching over certain segments of the track because it's been too old, and it needs to be fixed. And so rather than try to do it a bit at a time, we should at least have the conversation about whether an extended several-week shutdown, for example, could make a difference in just getting it done and improving the quality after that. Now, the city of Boston would have to step up a lot on that front. And that is also what I'm saying, that we can't just have a shutdown with no alternatives, but we would need to run bus service that is fast and on dedicated lanes and routed in a way, and that would fall to the city to help with.
You know, one last thing. I don't really know yet how you operate on things like this. When you, obviously the T is critical to downtown coming back to life and all the things that you know much better than we do. When you reach a conclusion like you've reached on this, essentially a radical solution, for lack of a better, or a disruptive solution, to use your word the other day, do you call Steve Poftak on the phone, the head of the T? Do you call Governor Baker? How do you communicate your perspective on these kind of things?
Well, in fact, most often my perspectives are informed. It's yes, I have. So the short answer is yes. I have spoken with the general manager, with folks at the T. I've talked with the governor regularly on all sorts of issues, and they have known that I'm sort of. They don't even need me to call. They can see my number on their phone, and they'll know I'm being impatient about the T. But even before that, these views are informed by trying to deeply understand from workers in the system, from those who are within the organization, what is needed and what we are missing in terms of how political will could help galvanize a faster, more urgent, bigger response.
One last thing on this. I said the last thing, now I really mean it. I said on the air the day after Governor Baker was here a couple of weeks, I was embarrassed that I asked him a question. I started by saying the T is a total mess. He disagreed with that. Sounds like you probably don't disagree with it. But that was the day that the woman had to jump into the Mystic. And I said I was embarrassed that we didn't stay on that for 20 minutes. There's a woman who had to jump into the damn river, in her estimation, to save herself. It's just beyond. And
it's not. It would be one thing if that incident, and certainly it was kind of an extreme visual of many elements. It was on a bridge, there was fire, you had to evacuate on a live route, but that wasn't even the only situation recently that has risen to a level of serious safety concern.
Mayor, well, there's another thing we've talked about endlessly. It's the mass cast situation, and people have been living there in tents, and there's still problems with people open-air drug selling, and so forth. The state's highest court just ruled in favor of Boston on the Long Island Bridge, and one of the reasons there's so many people at mass cast is because there used to be a lot of facilities out in Long Island, and the bridge was deemed unsafe to travel over. So what are we thinking about Long Island? I mean, the Boston's won, but it's still a ways off to build a bridge. Where's that?
Long Island has to be part of a spectrum of services and a pipeline of supports for residents experiencing substance use, and especially the overlap with mental illness and homelessness as well. We are still a ways away from anything concrete, right, literally being poured into the ocean or anything like that. Even if we were to certify and finish bridge design and update the costs for where we are now in today's economy, there's still several large permits that would need to be issued. I think in the meantime, the most important work for the city to do is to put all the pieces together of which communities, what segment of services would actually be offered on the island. There are buildings out there. There's about 250 acres of land that the city of Boston owns, but the buildings have been uninhabited and not used for 7-8 years. I've seen them firsthand. There's been water damage. The elevators are broken. There's a lot of work that would need to go into that in and of itself before we even get to transportation, right? Transportation, we could talk about what it means to have a ferry versus a bridge and what the short and long-term impacts are. But I want to do this in a way that's regionally collaborative, because this is a regional issue. We conduct census and surveys of the residents who are at Mass and Cast on a regular basis. The last survey had found that more than 80, almost 90% of people had given a last zip code of residence outside the city of Boston. And so I want to work with the state, our governor, our next governor, our regional partners to do this in a way that can truly serve the entire region. The Shattuck Hospital has to be a component of it, and services in other municipalities should be components of it as well.
When you said regional partners, very quickly, there's a quote from Mayor Koch of Quincy after the ruling. This is not remotely close to a green light for a new bridge. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, as I said, there are many layers of there. 3 big permits that are still left to go. For example, if we specifically wanted to pursue a bridge, but I've met with the mayor. He's been great. I mean, I completely understand his concerns as a fellow mayor, and I want to do this in a way. We might not get to 100% agreement, but at least to fully understand and be transparent about what we are trying to do.
John Paul from Boston. You're on with Mayor Michelle Wu of Boston. Hi there, John Paul.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Hi, Mayor Wu.
Hello.
I'm a driver for Lyft. I've been driving with them for 7 years. And as a driver, I was just wondering, we're pretty important to getting people back and forth from work, home after a night out, and bringing customers to small businesses. I know you opposed the recent ballot question, which would have allowed drivers to remain independent while earning, new benefits. Would you be willing to meet with some drivers that supported the ballot question to start a dialogue. This issue isn't going away, and I think we could find some common ground if we talk.
Well, thank you so much, Sean Paul, for your advocacy and for reaching out. I'm sure a member of my team will be happy to coordinate a meeting with you all, and I can make sure that someone from our administration follows up and meets with you all. For me, we shouldn't ever be put in a situation where we're having to choose between workers' rights and benefits and opportunity and a sort of economic growth or something that we need to keep businesses going or to keep our economy going. It's absolutely right that transportation is a very, very tenuous situation right now in Boston, and we want to make it so that Uber and Lyft don't become the only option that many people have as we invest in public transportation and cycling and other ways of land use and redesigning our communities as well. But for sure, I'll make sure that someone from our team can meet with you.
Sean Paul, thanks for the call. Why don't we go to somebody here who is part of the Harvard Chan Sea Change Youth Summit on Climate Equity and Health. Her name, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher her last name, apology. Well, I'll just do her first name. Lucy, welcome to the show. You're on with Mayor Wu. Hi. Hi. Is her mic on? Oh, wait a second. The mic is not working. That would have been nice to know. I don't know how we're going to do this. Do we have it? Can she speak into this mic? Lucy, sit tight for a minute and we'll figure out something, okay? My apologies. 877-301-8897. Here's a text, Mayor Wu. Will BPS staff and students be required to wear masks in September until the new BA5 boosters become available? Some school districts like Washington, meaning DC, are requiring vaccination for school enrollment next year. Will there be a vaccine mandate in BPS schools?
Okay, a couple really important pieces to that question. First, we have not formally set the policy for start of school and masking and all the COVID protocol, although I'm in constant meetings with our Boston Public Health Commission, new superintendent, and the team about that. Generally, as we are headed into a sort of ongoing ebb and flow of COVID and different variants, and as now the eligibility for children under 5 to be vaccinated has become a key part of that equation. Generally, I think rather than having blanket mandates for an undefined period of time, it's better to have very targeted, specific protocols and responses. So when there is a surge in the community, to have masking for that period of time as we anticipate that and follow the numbers as they're trending. When we see a cluster or positive test case within a classroom, to have masking just to make sure that that classroom will be safe and that students can, that we can contain any potential transmission there. So we will continue to work that out. As far as the mandate for vaccination for attendance in school, that is a state issue, and so far we have not gotten signals that the state will be moving in that direction, so we would need to defer to them.
I think we got the microphone fixed now.
We do?
Yes, I think we do.
Lucy, let's give it a go. Here she is.
Here she is.
Well, that's working really well. Lucy, sit tight for another second. Are you a patient kind of person or not? Where are you from?
I'm from Cambridge.
Oh, you are? Yeah. So you're not an international participant. You're from Cambridge. Sit tight for a second. We're going to get the mic working in a second.
We can come up and have Lucy
Easy
use
for him to say.
use our mics here in the interim.
Can we discuss a happier topic for a second? You know that I am obsessed with these street closings and Copley closings and whatever. One of the street closings, am I right, JP has already happened?
Yep, Center Street.
How'd that go? What's the...
It was huge. I mean, I don't have the official counts yet, but the original goal of this, what is often across the world called cyclovia event, an idea where you shut down large stretches of streets so that you can bike and ride and go on wheels freely. It was so successful, in fact, that it was honestly hard to bike and wheel because there were so many people all walking on the street. Probably, I mean, in my estimation, more than 3 times as many people as we had anticipated. But it was wonderful. Clearly, there's energy and excitement for people to be back together in community. And the small businesses, I heard, had many were open and had huge new customers come in and sales, and so it was great.
Do you have a Newbury date yet, Newbury Street date, or no?
We have not solidified the dates yet. I'm trying to remember. We just had a conversation internally about this, but it should be something like 6 or 8 weekends starting in August, I believe. I think it's starting in August.
And the review on Copley, is that still ongoing about that whether that was a success, which it was?
It was a success in many ways that I think we don't need a review to tell us that. What we are waiting to come back is the official traffic counts for other parts of the surrounding area. And I will put in a plug. We have 2 upcoming Open Streets events that you can get more info if you look on the city website. But the next one will be on Blue Hill Ave, centered around Roxbury, and then one in September on Dorchester Ave, almost the entire length of the Dot Ave parade.
Terrific.
We're talking with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. She's going to be with us until the top of the hour at noontime. Our number is 877-301-8970. You can call her or text her at that number. We are at Boston Public Library, broadcasting live. Michelle Wu, I wonder what's happening with childcare funding through development in Boston. This was something that I think Ray Flynn started a long time ago, but it's not really worked out as well as we hoped.
Yeah, it was really exciting. We just had an event with the former mayor, Ambassador Flynn, at City Hall Daycare. It's a secret, tucked away part of the building on the 4th floor where my kids all took their first steps, although the providers very kindly pretended that they didn't. And they would say, they're about to walk. I'm sure they'll walk tonight at home. But lots of us have had, city staff have had young people go through that program. It was established more than 30 years ago at the same time as an executive order zoning provision that he had signed. The idea was that working parents shouldn't have to choose between being a parent and having a young child and being part of our city's economy and working. And so that requirement was that for any new commercial building being built, any large downtown development, that it would be required to have childcare on site or contribute resources to create childcare off site. Now that last part was kind of vague and sometimes enforced, sometimes not enforced. Sometimes they would have a payment, sometimes they wouldn't. They would donate to a different nonprofit. So we are just clarifying that as to the exact amount that's required based on the market in Boston. The estimate is that means new downtown commercial developments will contribute about $400,000 per development to their child care fund. On average, annually, given how our pipeline is projected to go, it should be about $800,000, a little over $1 million every year, and that can help fund, if not on-site childcare out in our neighborhoods, non-traditional work hours, and many of the multilingual spaces that we're looking to create.
And I just want to be clear, the development that's already here, that we're supposed to do this, what can you do about that?
So if it's already built, unfortunately, there's not much that we can go back and get back out of them.
Okay.
But the idea is that we're clarifying the spirit of the original zoning code and looking to make sure that it sticks today.
Let's go to Charlestown, where Maggie is on with the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Hey, Maggie.
Hey, Jim. How are you?
How am I? Never better. How are you, Maggie?
I'm fabulous.
Okay, here's the mayor.
We love your show.
Well,
and yes,
you.
Mayor Wu. A question about the construction of the Charlestown Bridge and why there has been such a long delay.
Yes. Maggie, I am so sorry. I know this is, Charlestown, just like East Boston with the Sumner Tunnel closures, it becomes very, very difficult, and traffic already was tough, and now with these delays, it becomes even harder. What happened was, in the manufacturing of the pieces of the bridge, I can't remember which piece, but they found some irregularities that needed to be redone in the manufacturing plant out in somewhere regionally in New England. And so getting those pieces actually fixed and back out has been a significant delay with all the supply chain, this and that. And so it's been quite frustrating for us, a little bit out of our control in terms of, obviously safety first, and we would never want to do anything with pieces that are at all in question. And so we're working on that as quickly as possible, trying to apply pressure to make sure it keeps going.
Maggie, thank you. We're going to try, Lucy, for the third
time.
and final time.
It's like my inauguration, Lucy.
Lucy, let's hear. Say hello.
Hi.
Oh my God!
There
Let's
we
hear it
go.
for Lucy.
Woo!
Yes.
We get the mic working.
Take it away, Lucy.
I'm Lucy. I'm from Cambridge, and I'm here with the Harvard CCHAN program. And my question is there anything standing in the way of making progress on climate change issues in the city of Boston? And what can young people and high schoolers like myself do to help break down those barriers?
Thank you so much.
It was worth the wait, Lucy. I want you to know.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And in fact, that question really is the question of our next century on this planet. Like, this is the issue that is going to shape what life is like, and we're seeing, I was seeing pictures today of how the drought is affecting Boston, places where there's usually water from the Charles or others completely dry, and we've seen that in storms getting more intense, heat getting more intense, and so New England is really at the center of a lot of that. I would say that, so I just got back from a new mayor's school with mayors from around the country and the world last week, and Boston is in a really good place. We're very lucky and blessed to have resources here with all of our incredible partner institutions, and we're blessed to have people who care so much and political will up and down the state, city, local, federal spectrum, and activists who are ready to go. I think the biggest barrier for us is many of these interventions have been delayed so long that they need to be really big now. And to do really big things, it takes significant funding, although it is still cheaper to do it now rather than kick the can down the line and take care of it later. We do need support from the federal government and state government. Now, it is life-changing that the Senate has come to some agreement on the portions of the climate bill. And
don't count your chickens.
No, I've been trying to find wood to knock on. But the city has a lot to do, even before we get the scale of funding that we need, and we know at some point we'll shake loose. Boston needs to be getting ready. We need to be testing out what works, so piloting things like free transportation or electric school buses or changes to our food system and economy, and building out our green youth jobs program. So if we can do all that organizing, do all that testing, lay out our priorities now, when the funding comes, we will plug it right in and we'll be the equivalent of shovel ready. I think how you all could make a big difference is help spread the word about particularly that youth green jobs program, help us identify other pilot programs, or something as simple as trees. Actually, it's quite complex in Boston because trees are our most efficient technology to fight climate change, hands down. Trees and whales, but I'll get into that a different day.
Whales?
But in Boston, we have empty tree pits, we have street trees, park trees, and trees on private property. Often, people get frustrated because we know trees are so great, but for a property owner, it's the roots are messing up your foundation, the branches are hanging over and dropping things. And so to do that education, to train up maybe even a volunteer workforce to help with tree pruning or little things around green infrastructure that can really make a difference in our residents' day-to-day lives will open up a whole avenue for us making change on a big scale.
Lucy, thanks so much. We're finally glad.
Maybe just one follow-up on this. We don't know, of course, if the so-called anti-inflation bill is going to actually. We think it will, but we don't know for sure. But if it does, with the climate money in there, what does that mean for Boston? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so we have to be ready. I think, for example, we saw with the PPP program during the pandemic that was meant to help, it was a paycheck protection program,
yes,
I believe,
yes.
Meant to help small businesses, that in fact, the way that it was set up, first come, first serve, limited money, those who had a banking relationship had easier access. In fact, the results ended up being exacerbating inequities in a lot of ways. And so we at the city level need to do that work to make those resources available, to apply for the grants as applicable in all the categories that have been laid out, but also, for example, where now the caps have been lifted in this bill around electric vehicle rebates. So electric cars could be incredibly more accessible for everyone, to have the charging infrastructure ready, to promote that information so everyone knows as they're thinking about paying their excise tax, like putting that information right in the excise bills to say, hey, did you know that this opportunity is available? We have a lot of work to do at the city level. On the federal level, I think one of the most remarkable parts of this legislation is that it actively will shift incentives for the private sector to really be a partner in climate change, whether it is in auto manufacturing or other types of rebates and incentives and sort of tax incentives that are available.
I have two quick things before we take a break. Both of them are in your capacity as a human, not as mayor. Do you buy a lottery ticket for Mega Millions? It's $1 billion.
I never buy a lottery.
Never
I don't even ever win. You know, when there's like an office raffle, I've never won anything.
Second thing, I assume most people know you went to Harvard Law School, so obviously a pretty good lawyer in addition to whatever else. I assume you're watching these hearings, and the biggest question in America is, did Donald Trump commit crimes? And if he did, should he be prosecuted? What's your Citizen Wu position on both those things?
Clearly yes, and clearly yes, but our system is so, I mean, just the tolerance now has been so skewed for misconduct, for inappropriate behavior, for just things that you, like, so much of how I see the world is as a mom, right? How would I want my boys growing up to become or be supported or to see as role models? And it's really unfortunate that we're really down to splitting hairs here, right? Is there a specific legal argument that maybe he could or couldn't, there's a gray area for if he could or couldn't be prosecuted? Yes, sure, I'll give us that. And as a lawyer, I know it's very important to err on the side of protecting people's rights as opposed to jumping to conclusions about guilt or not giving someone a proper defense. But when it is the President of the United States and the type of behavior that we're talking about is at the scale that we have seen laid out now in video footage, in interviews, in direct conversations with people around him, I mean, it's just frustrating that we're still talking about gray areas.
That's the voice of Mayor Michelle Wu. You're listening to another edition of Ask the Mayor. You're listening as well to Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. The mayor's going to be with us till noontime. If you want to reach her, 877-301-8970.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail. You can travel into the past through 9 towns in Plymouth County. Learn more at ssirishtrail.org, funded by the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism. And Comcast. Xfinity Internet is committed to bringing speeds over a gig to power your devices while fitting your needs and a range of budgets. Learn more at xfinity.com/gig. And Johnson & Wales University, helping to prepare graduates for impactful careers using a collaborative, interdisciplinary approach to learning. You can explore more at jwu.edu. And Hopkinton Center for the Arts, presenting live band concerts Friday and Saturday nights starting at 6:30. Tickets and details on their Summer Arts Series at hopartscenter.org, funded in part by the Metro West Visitors Bureau.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marge Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're joined for this hour by Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. If you want to talk to her, you can give her a call or text her at 877-301-8970. And if you're at the library today, as she is here, you can go over to Gia, our colleague, and she will get you in line to take a question.
Stephanie from Hyde Park, you're on with Mayor Michelle Wu. Go ahead.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. So I wanted to ask about public safety, because last Saturday I was at the Drag Queen Story Hour in Jamaica Plain at the Lauren Greenhour House. And while the police presence was there, it still felt like we were kind of caught by surprise when the group showed up. And I was with my 2 very young children, and we were stuck inside the Lauren Greenhour House for a time. And you know, we had to leave, and these people were allowed to call me a monster and a pedophile and swear at me and my children. So I'm just wondering what the plan is going forward for these kind of events where protesters like that show up.
It is just despicable and horrible that you and especially your little ones had to experience that, and there's no excuse or apology that could be enough. So I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. We are, as a city, being targeted by many of these groups. I believe not because they feel comfortable here, but exactly the opposite, that they look at the leadership now, up and from U.S. Attorney Rollins to our Congresswoman to myself and so many of our elected officials, and the policies that we are all collectively moving forward, and they don't like the direction that Boston is headed in today, which is inclusive of all and taking on issues that have long needed to be taken on. And so they are looking to provoke attention and confrontation in our city this way. We rely on the federal law enforcement partners to give us information where they can, because many of these groups are coming in from outside the state sometimes, or in this case, outside the city, but it's sort of within New England, this past group in Jamaica Plain. And we don't have the details usually of exactly where and when. And so we have actually ramped up, sort of in preparation, a force within the Boston Police that are basically ready to go when we know that there are many events scheduled across the city. They can immediately show up and have a zero tolerance policy, right? So that means whenever any line is crossed that is beyond the First Amendment, they are, as we saw over the weekend, disrupting the peace or a fray or vandalism, from putting a sticker on something, anything that crosses a city, state, or federal law, immediately there will be consequences and accountability for these groups. And sometimes, maybe more often than not, many of these charges may be dropped depending on how the prosecutors take it or how the court takes it, but it is our obligation to make it difficult and to stand up when we have the ability to try to do something. But we've wrestled with how much, even when there is sort of sketchy information on there might be an appearance, or we've seen folks here or there, or they seem to be generally targeting events of this types around the country, it's a little bit of a balance, because we, in this case, worked with the event organizers directly, but had not broadcasted publicly, one, because there wasn't solid information, but two, because that in some ways then ratchets up the potential for large crowds, confrontation, and more violence. And so we're working very closely with the U.S. Attorney. She and the Boston Police are creating a hotline where information can be reported right away. Any tips, any sightings, any information. We have followed up to get license plate numbers and other information from those involved in this incident over the weekend. It is something that we need to change the dynamic on.
Stephanie, we thank you, Cole. Can we stay on extremism just for a second? Can you give us an update on whatever look is into this incident with the Patriot Front and the police not showing up kind of thing? Where is that? Do we know what's the status of the look that the investigation into that?
The groups, so I've gotten a bit of a briefing on all that we know about white supremacist groups in this region and across the country. The national groups, for example, Patriot Front and some of the others, continue to target Boston, but we're still looking into some of the details of what exactly could go better in terms of coordination between the city and the federal
Including
government.
looking at that day several weeks ago, the day when the Patriot Front was marching through town?
Yeah, I mean, there was the St. Patrick's Day parade. There was the incident outside the hospital, and that incident, and now Jamaica Plain as well.
One other thing about extremists, Joe, I can't pronounce his name, Abasciano, in addition to, he's a cop on paid leave living in New Hampshire for, a year and a half since January 6th, tweeting out things under a deleted account about the vice president being treasonous or a traitor. He's still getting paid as far as we can tell, and it's been a year and a half. Where are we in terms of the city, the police department, determining whether or not this guy, one, should show up for work if he's not going to be fired, or should he be fired? Where is that?
The FBI and federal partners, I think, have gotten pretty good information about who was in the Capitol in all different ways, right? Whether it's from cell phones or video, et cetera. And so I haven't seen the internal review of those files or anything that might have been connected between Boston Police and that incident. But my understanding is that there were no officers inside the building on that day.
Including
Now,
this guy.
I don't have specifics of who has been under investigation.
Are you
or
okay
anything
that
like
it's taken a year and a half? And are you okay that he's still getting paid?
Well, I'm not okay that we don't know yet at this moment. And I think there's been a lot happening within the city and within the department, and a lot of resources being stretched in different directions, but this is something that will definitely be resolved.
You know, as long as we're on the subject of police, there's a new police commissioner, Michael Cox. Why'd you pick him?
He's an incredible human being. He is the most qualified person that we possibly could have found for our city in this moment. He's worked at every level within the Boston Police Department. He's worked across every bureau within the department as well, and he's led as a police commissioner in a different community too. And so he brings that knowledge and familiarity with our community, having been born and raised in this city. And most of all, when I first met him during our interview, he just radiates a sense of hope and optimism about what is possible to change within the system and the ways to do that in partnership with community. So we're aligned on all of our values and goals, and I think he really brings familiarity and trust within the department as well, and within the community to be able to move forward.
One last thing about him, and it seems to be a really impressive pick. We haven't met Commissioner Cox, or soon to be commissioner, I guess, by mid-August. In a Globe story talking about what happened to him, a couple of decades ago, they mentioned that one of the people who was originally charged, convicted twice, but his convictions were overturned by two different federal judges, is this guy, Kenneth Conley, who's still on the force as a sergeant detective. Did you discuss Sergeant Detective Conley's presence? I mean, Cox is going to be his boss. And while he was acquitted, should obviously be fair here, he was somebody who was charged with perjury and some involvement in this horror show that Commissioner Cox had to live through. Was that part of your discussion?
We didn't discuss specific names, or we've of course discussed his experience with the Boston Police Department at all different times of our city. And after that experience in 1995, he remained, and recovered and healed, and then remained on the force for more than 2 decades after that. And so, in some ways, he. And I think obviously it's a different relationship now with some people within the department, but people know him, he knows everyone, and I am absolutely confident that he's the right person for the job.
Tommy in South Boston texts, please ask the mayor, where does she believe the transformation of the Bpda stands, and is it happening fast enough? The proliferation of life science labs in Boston is startling and appears to be occurring without any plan.
Yeah, the Bpda is in a transition point. Our new chief of planning, Arthur Jemison, who also comes with ideal experience and familiarity with Boston and with our systems. We have met, I think we met last week, just to get a full review of where we're starting from. We're in the middle of trying to kind of keep lots of things up in the air and move forward on others, and making some decisions on what to do with planning processes that were 80% complete or 50% complete, and then how to reshape planning overall. So there will be a bit of managing reactively sort of what has already processed pretty far into through the existing processes, while designing new forward-looking processes for what will be to come. One example, many of our planning processes have been focused, I think, at a very sort of unproductive scale, where we look at neighborhoods but without the specificity of how that applies to individual projects and specific locations and streets, and then without the broadness of how it actually connects with all the other neighborhoods and our citywide initiatives. And so we are looking to actually shift to more of a citywide outcome-based planning process, whether it's how do we design Boston around walkable neighborhoods with the squares in each neighborhood, or a citywide open space plan, or how does life sciences actually fit into our industry mix citywide. And so moving to that scale is something that we are diving into next.
It's the voice of Mayor Michelle Wu with us till the top of the hour.
You know, we had a caller that had a bad connection, wanted to ask about what public school families can expect with the new superintendent and whether the mayor, that's you, of course, think the teachers' unions have outsized power to set policy in the district.
I am so excited for Mary Skipper to officially start her. So her first full-time day will be September 26th in the district, as she is transitioning and helping to wrap up her responsibilities and team in Somerville as well. But I'm on the phone with her multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day. So she's definitely putting in way more than a full-time job right now, juggling both. We just recently came to an agreement with the Boston Teachers Union for their contract for the retroactively for 1 year and then looking ahead for 2 years. And it was an intense process, I think, as any negotiation is, but an incredibly informative one, where the prevailing, I think, sometimes stereotype is that, okay, we're at odds with our unions and their job is to fight everything the city's trying to do, and the administration's job is to try to just squeeze as much out as possible and then settle in the middle. We actually came to, both with the teachers union and the bus drivers union, came to some remarkable policy changes and operational changes through the contract. With the bus drivers union, there were some provisions that were removed. For example, that had a no call, no show, where drivers did not have to give notice that they weren't going to come that day and could retroactively apply personal leave, or could reclaim routes up to 20 minutes after the starting time, so no one knew if they should leave or not and would have to wait 20 minutes. So some of those changes have been incorporated, as well as more resources for training and building up the pipeline of drivers to get CDL licenses. On the teachers union contract side, there had been some, frankly, sort of archaic provisions around special education in there that were actively making it difficult for the district and our educators to properly give the supports and services needed. It ended up pushing us towards a sort of on or off switch around special education, with substantially separate classrooms, which end up exacerbating inequities and particularly racial inequities, or a sort of off switch, as opposed to having partial inclusion and the opportunities to really be flexible. That's what our new contract includes, and it took a huge leap of faith by our teachers union to arrive at that.
You know, there was an interesting story reported by the Bay State Banner talking about how usually there's terrible, well, or great, depending how you look at it, competition to get into the Boston 3 exam schools. This year, it was only about 1,200 kids applying for 800 spots. Previous years, there have been 2,800 kids. They said in the Bay State Banner this has to do with declining enrollment overall. But that is kind of odd, because doesn't everybody want to get into the exam schools that can get into the exam schools? Or at least there's a significant fight to get into these places. We're always debating how to get into them, and now the numbers have gone down.
I mean, it's hard to know without actually speaking to each family that applied or didn't apply. And in fact, there was work done to ensure that families who were eligible, given the new criteria, were notified and made aware of it. So there was some, I think, active choice being made. And overall, I mean, there's been coverage of how districts outside Boston as well have seen 10% enrollment declines throughout the pandemic in addition. But I think, just kind of broadly generalizing, in fact, we want to be moving to a system where all of our high schools present such attractive opportunities that it's no longer, okay, let everyone only try to fight over how to most equitably divide up too few seats in only a small number of schools, but maybe the school that you live near is way more convenient and also has excellent opportunities. Maybe there's a school that's not an exam school but offers a different career track that you feel really passionate about. That's the dynamic that we're aiming to set up with our high schools all across the city.
Does the declining enrollment have any impact on your building plan? Because Jessica Tang, who's head of the teachers union, was talking about a possible having to consolidate schools, which is always a big fight.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be realistic about where the numbers are and what that means in terms of the sort of costs to have classrooms and school buildings. But at the same time, my belief is that we don't want to plan for the narrowest possible participation in our school district. Ideally, we want our schools to be so exciting that we are drawing more and more students. Ideally, we want our housing policies and transportation system to be working so that more families with kids can afford to stay in Boston and come back to the city. And so I'm not giving up hope on our school system bucking the trend, right? Certainly our public safety statistics have bucked the trend nationally. We need to put in a lot of work to get to that place, and it's a lot of factors outside BPS alone, but that's why we're setting up our children's cabinet to draw on resources across every city department and to ensure that we are planning for a community, schools, whole child, whole family, whole community approach. It could be that where there are extra sort of what were previously classroom space should be on-site healthcare, right, with partnerships from community or on-site programming. And so we have to be creative. It impacts everything's interconnected in the decision making, but there's a lot of opportunities right now.
Paula, you're in Dorchester. You're on with the mayor of the city of Boston, Michelle Wu. Hey, Paula.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure.
Mayor Wu, I'm a parent in Bpda, and I'm wondering about planning and development, and how are you holding them accountable for creating housing that supports families? So in Lower Mills, there are 2 developments right now that are 1 and 2 bedroom condos, no 3 bedroom, minimum affordability. How much myself of you know?
Yeah, I got you. I heard you.
I think we have the gist of the
I'm
question,
very good
Paula.
at understanding
Someone wants
folks
your
with
attention.
kids in the background.
Yeah,
That is my specialty. So I think it's every day it feels so overwhelming, right, with the headlines that are coming out federally, with seeing the numbers and costs going up everywhere, inflation and prices at the pump and housing costs. And so we know that we can't ever move fast enough on this. I will share just a bit of what we have been doing and I think are huge steps forward, although just again acknowledging that it is certainly not enough and we want to do more quicker. Part of this is finding the places where when we will have larger scale housing developments that we can push for new standards to be set. Recently we announced that Harvard University in their massive redevelopment in a swath of Alston for their enterprise research campus has set committed to a new level of affordability, 25% affordable housing units on site. That is nearly double the current minimum requirement of 13%, and also more than what the project initially had proposed at 17%. And so that should set more of a precedent everywhere, especially for larger developments. We are also currently awaiting the results of a study to look at our linkage requirements, how much new developments should be chipping in for affordable housing and jobs and workforce development. That level of 13% is really the key that they're examining to see what it should be at, what the economy can bear, what the results would be, and whether we should drop the thresholds that applies to, because currently it's only for 13% of developments that are 10 units or more. So then we see a whole lot of 9-unit developments being proposed in a lot of different places. We're looking at what makes sense on that front too.
Paula, thank you so much for the call. Ton of texters want to know if you support this happy hour provision in the economic development bill.
I am excited about, I've spent time in cities that have had happy hour in years past, and it brings, speaking of open streets, speaking of festivals, it does bring a sense of, okay, here's one more way to connect with your coworkers and all that. I very much hear the struggle and concern of restaurant owners who say, we are worried that this could end up being a race to the bottom in terms of their margins and what they can charge, and if they're trying to break even on their costs and rent, and then the restaurant next door is giving all discount, free alcohol, then how are they being affected by that? So I think the actual implementation really makes a difference in how cities would then apply their own specific rules. What's currently before the legislature is a local option, which would be basically an opt-in for cities. So if this passes at the state level, it removes the ban statewide, but then each city still has to come up with their own rules that could be crafted to fit that community. We're also in a time where we need to get people back downtown, back together. It affects all of our small businesses because remote work is going to be a thing that stays permanently. And so having a way to add one more draw to the business district overall could make a difference and could be relevant, especially
So
now.
you support the thing?
I support having this provision passed at the state level and will do my best if that happens at the city level to make sure that we're listening to all parties and would only move forward with something that makes sense.
Okay, so we know you don't buy lottery tickets. Do you drink?
I do. I mean, I'm not like, I don't, I find
I saw you,
I'm,
by the way, we haven't said this to you. I saw the video of you dancing. We both
See, I'm
did
like that
at the
without any alcohol or
inauguration.
caffeine. So,
Is that really true?
But I enjoy a glass of champagne. Yeah.
She's not tying one on every night, Jim, if that's what you're asking.
No, well, I was
about
just
that.
asking her if she was drinking. We are really short on time here. Carrie in Dorchester, if you can get your question out in 30 seconds, you got it. Shoot.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Hi,
Thank
Carrie.
you.
Thank you for calling.
I have a question about in-person for in-class training they used to offer at public libraries, Mass Higher, ABCD. They are all only from online. And if you're 50 and older, you need to be in the class. It's no longer a choice. I've called the governor's office all the way up to there, and no one has the answer. So it just seems like you're stuck.
We got it. You came to the right place.
Yeah.
Mayor Wu.
Corona.
Yeah, I would love to follow up, and if we could get your contact information
Stay on.
after, because I want to know if it's an organization making that decision or the library system, and we'll see how we can help.
Carrie, stay on hold. We'll get your number, give it to the mayor's office.
So, Mayor Wood, does the mayor get to take a summer vacation with her children, or do you have to work every single day between now and Labor Day?
I am going this year. We did, the campaign was very, very busy. I've been saying I kind of felt like we've completed several marathons in a row between getting, 14-month campaign and then really a very, very intense first several months of building up our team. And so we had skipped any sort of vacation last year. Our family tradition is to go up to Acadia National Park with extended family.
Oh,
It's
nice.
beautiful there. There's no cell phone reception in many of the trails, and we'll go for a little bit.
Beautiful.
Wait, you can do a day without your phone? I don't believe that. Can you do a day without your
I
phone?
didn't say a day. I said a trail.
That's
You're
right.
an honest woman, Mayor Wu. It's great to see you, Mayor. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah,
We really
thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much for being here, Mayor Wu. That, of course, was Mayor Michelle Wu, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, and she's another edition of Ask the Mayor, and she's kind enough to come every month for that, and we love it when she comes to the library. After a quick break, we're going to check in with GBH's Callie Crossley. If you were not aware, this is National Chicken Wing Day.
It is.
We're very excited about it. So is Callie. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday and Friday from the Boston Public Library. We are also streaming at youtube.com, GBH News.
I'm Frank Oglesby, voice of the T. The doors are opening for Smart Conversation with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Local perspective, local voices. Welcome aboard, Boston's local NPR.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Showcase Cinemas, the new feature film Where the Crawdads Sing, based on the novel by Delia Owens, is now playing at Showcase Cinemas. Tickets available on the Showcase app or at showcasecinemas.com. In 1959, the village of Grantchester is experiencing an unusually hot wedding season and some unusually linked criminal activity. Don't miss Masterpieces Grantchester, Sunday at 9 on GBH2.
Trusted. Local. News. This is 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Ahead on Boston Public Radio from the Boston Public Library, GBH News analyst Charlie Sennett joins us with the latest on Ukraine, the prisoner swap the U.S. is offering to free WNBA star Brittany Griner, and whether the U.S. will retake the international lead on climate combat after Joe Manchin signs on.
Media maven Sue O'Connell will bring us up to speed on the supposed death row for fact-challenged One American News Network, now up to its neck in lawsuits. Then, another Live Music Friday, this time featuring the Cambridge Jazz Foundation, who fill us in on this weekend's Jazz Festival at Dennehy Park in Cambridge. All that and more ahead. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. At least 16 people are dead in flooding in Kentucky, and the state's governor says that number could rise. Entire towns in the Appalachians were washed away, and the flooding brought on mudslides that trapped people and knocked out power, making rescues difficult. Emergency crews made hundreds of water rescues and dozens of air rescues. The water is not expected to crest until tomorrow. NPR's Rebecca Hersher has more.
The kind of devastating heavy rain that we've seen this week is something that climate scientists have predicted for many decades, that as humans keep burning fossil fuels, the atmosphere gets hotter, the air holds more moisture, and so when it rains harder.
NPR's Rebecca Hersher. In St. Louis, residents braced themselves for more floods just days after a record-setting downpour earlier this week. And downtown Las Vegas saw flooding last night that turned some parking garages and casinos into pools. San Francisco is declaring a state of emergency, with the city reporting more than a third of California's confirmed cases of monkeypox. New York City says the virus is an imminent threat there. NPR's Ping Huang has more.
In cities across the country, people, including many gay and bisexual men, have been trying to get monkeypox vaccines. Anyone who's been in close contact to a confirmed case or has multiple sex partners in a community where it's spreading should be eligible. But Dr. Marcus Plesha with the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials says there haven't been enough doses to go around.
Yeah, I think states do feel like the federal government is doing everything they can to procure vaccine. But, we can't give out vaccines that we don't have.
The government says nearly 800,000 more doses will be available for states to order this weekend. The vaccine can help prevent or lessen the severity of monkeypox, which can cause very painful lesions that can last for several weeks. Ping Huang, NPR News.
San Francisco's state of emergency goes into effect on Monday. The Ukrainian National Police are signaling a crackdown on corruption as the war drags into its 6th month. NPR's Tim Mack reports corruption has been a top concern for Western allies that have poured military and humanitarian aid into the war-torn country.
The Ukrainian National Police have opened some 320 criminal cases relating to fraud and abuse of humanitarian aid. That's according to the agency's head, Ihor Klemenko. In these cases, the aid was destined for displaced Ukrainians or the armed forces, but was instead allegedly funneled to others for corrupt purposes. The head of the National Police gave as examples dealers who tried to sell military ammunition through shops in the Lviv region and individuals in Rivne who allegedly sold cars donated as charitable aid. Some 43 individuals have been identified as suspect, Klemenko added, and prosecution has already begun in some of those cases. Tim Mack, NPR News, Kyiv.
Wall Street's trading higher at this hour. The Dow is up 142, NASDAQ up 137. This is NPR.
And good afternoon from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston. I'm Craig Lamolt. A woman who was held in pretrial custody at the Suffolk County House of Correction died Saturday, making her the latest person to lose their life while under the jurisdiction of the Suffolk Sheriff's Department. GBH Radio's Tori Bedford reports.
Ashley Emma was held in the jail's medical unit for 4 days, awaiting trial on charges of larceny over $200 and operating a motor vehicle without authority. At around 5 a.m. on the 4th day, an officer found Emma unresponsive in her cell. Bonnie Teneriello, a staff attorney at Prisoners Legal Services in Boston, says Emma's case illustrates issues with safe care of incarcerated people with medical issues.
We've seen enough people die in custody. We have to wonder what's happening.
The Boston police say foul play is not suspected. 5 deaths of people under the jurisdiction of the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office last year are still under investigation. Tori Bedford, GBH, Boston's local NPR.
The highest court in Massachusetts has ruled a lawsuit brought by a former altar boy who alleges he was sexually abused as a child in the 1960s by a now deceased Roman Catholic bishop and other clergy can proceed. The Chicopee man alleges in the suit filed in 2021 that not only was he abused by a former Diocese of Springfield Bishop Christopher Weldon, as well as 2 priests, but also that the church engaged in a cover-up to protect the bishop's reputation. The diocese sought to have the suit dismissed based on charitable immunity and the doctrine of church autonomy derived from the First Amendment. The SJC said charitable immunity does not apply because the alleged abuse, quote, was not and could not be related in any way to a charitable mission. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include DuckDuckGo, committed to making privacy online simple. Used by tens of millions, they offer internet privacy with one download. DuckDuckGo, privacy simplified at duckduckgo.com.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday and Friday from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. He's Jim Browdy and I am Marjorie Egan. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. Joining us now live from the BPL's GBH's Kelly Crossley. Kelly's the host of Under the Radar with Kelly Crossley, which you catch Sunday nights here on 89.7 at 6. Also the host of Basic Black airs Friday at 7:30. Before we even start, give us a quick review on the 3 guys who just played as a prelude to performances later in the show from participants in the Cambridge Jazz Festival. What would you say?
Fabulous, fabulous. You know, I love jazz.
I know that.
Jazz is an intro and theme song of my show. I love it. So
how great were they?
They're fabulous.
By the way, Callie is sitting here. These guys are practicing. She's throwing requests at these guys.
Hey, why
What'd
not?
you ask for?
What a difference a day made.
Well, that's a pretty good one.
24 little hours.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Well, people are going to have to wait just a little bit longer. What time?
About an hour or so they'll be playing.
About an hour or so we'll get
Can't
back.
wait.
Yeah.
They were great.
But meanwhile, let's get back to the often depressing and not always news, though it is actually National Chicken Wing Day, so we can talk about that a little bit later. But let's start with Congressman Matt Gaetz, who's not a particularly nice person, under investigation for having sex with women that were not of age. Here he is making some pretty gross comments about women that he claims he sees at abortion rallies, and then the response of a 19-year-old activist, Olivia Giuliani, on MSNBC, whom he directly targeted on Twitter.
Have you watched these pro-abortion, pro-murder rallies? Why is it that the women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions?
I'm not necessarily surprised that this is a path that Matt Gaetz would take, considering since he's been elected into Congress, his judgment has been questionable at best. I'm surprised that he thought that I would just allow him to publicly body shame me when I very clearly have a reputation and a past of letting Republican politicians know that that kind of behavior will not be tolerated.
So Kelly Crossley, give us the backstory here and what you think about it.
Well, first of all, you know, I'm just a little bit surprised that this is so old school disgusting. I mean, don't you have something new to say if you're going to be disgusting? I mean, I just thought, really? I just thought that was the bottom of the barrel. And I actually was surprised that that's where, you know, he would go. But I should never be surprised. You know what the old saying is, don't get mad, get even.
Yes.
So there she is. So she's raising donations for Gen Z for Choice Abortion Fund. And it already hit the 50,000 mark. And then she sent him a nice tweet with a thank you card as a result of that. Because as she said, she's not going to allow him to just bring her down. I just thought, wow, just how low can you go? Just, Matt, you don't agree with her position on abortion? Fine, express yours, but we're really going to go there. Does he really want anybody to, in turn, begin to talk about the way that he looks? I mean, I'm not trying to be
funny. How about
funny.
his hairdo? What do you think of the hairdo?
All of that. I mean,
Yeah.
why do you even invite that?
I don't know.
I don't
Well, can we
understand.
also say the most disgusting stuff that he said wasn't even in the soundbite we played. He says, but why we have played? Why is the women with least likelihood of getting pregnant the ones most worried about having abortions? Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb. These people are odious on the inside and out. They're like 5'2", 350 pounds, and they're like, give me the abortion or I'll get up and march and protest. I'm thinking, go march. fat and ugly is his thing. And by the way, I know you're not working for the Department of Justice, but can somebody answer a question? His alleged co-conspirator in this sex trafficking turned federal evidence and testified
so why is he
against
walking
him.
around?
Why is he walking around?
That's the question I'd like answered.
I mean, get with it. And by the way, this whole notion, this is not I'll say it anyway, this whole notion that if you don't prosecute somebody, you have no obligation to the public to say, even a high-profile elected official, why you're not, is BS as far as I'm concerned. Maybe the investigation's over. Maybe there's a grand jury. How about alerting the public when there's a conclusion? In any case, he is a despicable character.
Yes, he is.
And good for her. She's done great things. She really has.
Exactly.
Well, Callie Crossy, before the show I mentioned that the legislature is very pro-union in general. But for some reason, this Senate president is not really keen on this effort to organize State House employees. And she says that they can't even do it. This is the quote from Karen Spilka: "The Senate does not at this time see a path forward for traditional employer-union relationship in the Senate as we are currently structured." And the piece does explain the Globe, these difficulties in terms of the way certain things are written. But I'm suspicious. I mean, you're for unions every place but under the Golden Dome.
Well, that's not a good look. Let's start there.
Yeah.
But I would say, based on the details as put in this piece by Samantha Gross, there's some complexity to it that I don't think is a part of some of the other union-led efforts or wannabe union-led efforts in other legislatures. So if they went with a piece of the state law as written, they get squeezed out of some health care benefits. I mean, there appears to be no bill right now that encompasses what they would want as rights of, which is the reason why they're trying to establish a union, is to get better health care, certainly better salaries, and to have some protections against sexual and abuse. So it's a little complicated. Well, that doesn't mean that the lead can't be. It's a little complicated, but we're going to try to work it out.
Exactly.
So responding to your suspicion, I don't know if it's meant to come off like that, but it's coming off like that.
Well,
let me just put it like that.
am I going to blow my top on every topic? I'm going to try not to after this one. First of all, Karen Spilka, the Senate president, is a former labor lawyer in her prior life.
That's a good point.
That's number one. Two, Will Brownsberger, is on our station this morning at 7 o'clock saying the most condescending crap, saying, we don't have much time, and I'm paraphrasing, but essentially what he said, and we have more important things to do. And my response to Senator Brownsberger is, then don't go home on July 31st for 5 months. Stick around and respect the rights of the damn Senate staff who is trying to organize. And by the way, if they need to change the law, which is complicated, as you say, Kelly, then again, stick around through August, change the law so their workers have a right to be represented, which is their choice. I think it's such hypocrisy on the part of these progressive Democrats who, as Marjorie said, say they love unions except when it comes to our workplace.
I think it's important, as a part of your outrage, to detail the amount of work that is done by the staffers. So essentially, the whole thing would shut down if they weren't working. Right. So now you're talking about your essential, you want to talk about essential workforce? This is your essential workforce dealing with, all kinds of high-level issues that you are underpaying, not providing health insurance for, and denying them an opportunity to try to pull together a framework in which they might be supported in that way. After acknowledged, I didn't leave off the abuse, the sexual abuse, and other issues. Acknowledged incidents have happened in the legislature, that we didn't get all the details because of these weird NDAs and everything else. So it's not a good look. I would say.
You know, I just want to mention we're getting a lot of text messages from people that are talking about Olivia Giuliani, the woman that was
Juliana, not related to you know who.
That was dissed by the congressman, just really rudely insulted. Said that they're up over 1.1 million, and the next person says it's over 1.5 million. So she's really increased the amount of cash she's gotten in for her Gen Z for Change organization. So good for her. Thanks to the texters.
I know I'm going to aggravate you, Marjorie, because I am a broken record.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You know, there's no more important issue, forget the workers first, no more important issue in this legislature than what they do on abortion right now. They have ceded authority to Charlie Baker. I know you talked to Shirley about this. I heard a little bit about it yesterday when I was off. To Governor Baker, hopefully he'll sign the whole thing. If he chooses either to veto, which I'm sure he won't, or to send it back with changes, because they leave on July 31st, they can't do anything about it. Why is there not a hue and cry from taxpayers saying, stick around like the rest of us who actually work through the end of the year, as opposed to taking a 5-month hiatus? I don't understand this at all.
Well, all I know is that we've said the same thing now probably for about 15 years in a row, that the legislature takes an awful lot of time off and leaves a lot of important business undone. They just don't get to it.
There are two political oddities in Massachusetts for me. That's one. The other one is Governor's Council, please.
I'm so with you.
Tell us about this person, this Latina educator that's going to be in the quarters. I mean, she's got quite a resume, and she's going to be Adelina Nino Otero Warren is going to be on United States quarters very soon.
So I think a lot of people know that there's a quarters program highlighting a number of very interesting and important women. She's the latest, so her name is, as you said, Adelina Nina Otero Warren. She's a Mexican-American educator and activist. She fought for women's right to vote, blazed a trail when she ran for Congress. I knew nothing of this.
Nor did I.
I feel totally ignorant. And so she had leadership in the New Mexico movement for women's right to vote, pioneering role in politics, and the first female superintendent of the Santa Fe Public Schools.
Pretty impressive.
No idea. Never heard of her. And again, as they're doing with the other quarters, it's beautiful because it's not only her image, but there are some yucca flowers, and there's a suffragist slogan in Spanish, which means votes for women. I mean, this is really just quite a lovely tribute to her. And just as a reminder, these people are being honored and respected on the quarter because of us. People sent in their nominations for folks that they thought should be recognized. So the other people are Maya Angelou, writer, poet, and civil rights activist, Sally Ride, physicist, the first American woman in space, Wilma Mankiller, Native American and women's rights activist, and Anna May Wong, the first Chinese American film star in Hollywood. I just learned about Anna May Wong about 2 years ago.
Me too.
So, I mean, it's an education.
Yeah, speaking of education, do any, well, who knows? There must be, I hope that there are public school systems that decide contemporaneously with the release of the quarters to do a session, because I'm like you. I'm so glad you went first and said you didn't know about her.
No, I didn't know.
Because I never heard of her either. And talk about a rich history for this woman. And it's great they're doing it, but it'd be great also if kids and adults got to know what was going on.
Or maybe assign some kind of projects that they,
So I'm not going to blow my top around that, but Marjorie is going to blow her top around this. One of Marjorie's least favorite people is Laura Ingraham.
Yes.
We used to work with Laura Ingraham, by the way. We used to be on the same radio station. Occasionally did events with her. And here's a prediction. During this discussion about Laura Ingraham, Marjorie will say at some point, do you ever watch her at night? She's wearing a cross as she's doing this. Okay, we'll get to that.
That's the thing that drives me crazy.
Here is Laura Ingraham in 2018 reacting to LeBron James and Kevin Durant, among others, because they were taking a stand in the Colin Kaepernick national anthem thing. Here's Marjorie's favorite, Ms. Ingraham.
It's always unwise to seek political advice from someone who gets paid $100 million a year to bounce a ball. So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
Well, this is analogous to Olivia Giuliani and what LeBron is doing with shut up and dribble, right?
Exactly. So people may remember that he responded instantly at the time and essentially said to her, we're intelligent people and we can respond. And oh, by the way, you're the reason why we're out here having to make our stance known on some of these issues. But as he said now, he who laughs last laughs longest. So he's establishing an athletic empowerment brand using the words shut up and dribble, and it's going to be on everything. So lots of people will be buying it. I'm looking forward to it because certainly he has enough money to make sure that they're all very cleverly done. So we're, talking all kinds of virtual goods, computer programs, footwear, clothing, headwear, eyewear, bags, sportswear, backpacks, sports equipment, arts, toys, accessories for use online and in online virtual worlds. I think a kind thing for him to do would be to make a nice packet and send it to
Lauren.
I know. The reason it drives me crazy is it just doesn't seem she's espousing many Christian values on her television show from night to night, and that's one of the things that drives me crazy about But a lot of Republican women wear crosses around their neck. Have you noticed that?
I had not
Gold
noticed it. I
crosses
just noticed hers, and I think it's horrible.
So I don't know what to make of this story from the government. The headline of which is K through 12 student population is significantly diversified, but many schools remain divided along racial, ethnic, and economic lines. And I guess they want to report about this recent census and stuff. But I don't think anybody's surprised by this because, as we do know, neighborhoods are segregated within cities, towns are segregated. So I don't know what to make of this.
Well, a couple things. First of all, you need some data. I could sit here all day and proclaim many things, but I have no data to back it up.
Yep.
That's a problem. So this data is to demonstrate what people may have thought is the case, but this is quite dramatic. So they're really saying that 75% or more students in most of these schools, a third of these public schools, are of one single race. So in effect, even though the population is most diverse, I remind people that it's long ago now, I don't even remember what year it turned, that all the little kids in kindergarten, we're at the 2,854. They're a majority of persons of color at this point. So, they're just pointing out that the public school system is heavily segregated.
Yeah, and the inner city schools are predominantly kids of color, and the suburban schools are predominantly white kids.
Right.
And in some cases, white kids and Asian kids.
And resources make a difference here because in those communities that have fewer reresources, it's very obvious in the school system. They don't have the books, they don't have the equipment, they have this. And
a friend of mine who's looking for a teaching job was talking about the schools with the openings.
Yeah.
Mostly urban schools, right?
Yeah.
It's the Lawrences, it's not so much Boston, but the Lawrence, the Framingham, the New Bedfords, the Fall Rivers, Springfields.
Right.
The openings are not prolific in places like.
But you know what the solution to this thing is that you and
regional schools?
The regional school thing that Paul Revel, former Secretary of Education, talks about all the time. That Hartford magnet school where
that's great.
Kids from wealthy suburbs want to get involved, so they come into the city.
Right.
And it's so successful when you read about it, and people should. Hartford Magnet School, I'm not sure what the formal name is, that we should have asked the mayor about it, actually. It's something
and that wouldn't be that
month.
hard to do. Regional schools, there'd be a huge uproar because of everybody's property taxes. There'd be a huge uproar. But magnet schools, they're already succeeding in so many of these places. That's something we should ask the new superintendent when she comes in, because Hartford is a poor town. West Hartford's loaded, and the kids are just coming over the line to go to these special schools from West Hartford.
And you want the resources to follow. Exactly is what you really want.
Okay, can we talk about food for a couple of minutes?
Oh,
here?
yes.
Now, first of all, can I ask a question of the audience? How many of you have ever heard of a place called Papaya King? Can you raise your hand if you have? This is pathetic.
Yes.
Has no one ever gone to New York City for the weekend? Apparently not. Okay, can you explain to people what Papaya King is and why you and I are mourning a possible outcome for Papaya King?
Papaya King was an iconic place, even more iconic than some people will remember, the Seinfeld restaurant. It's a hot dog place, but it also had a kind of this delicious, not Mai Tai, I would say pina colada-like drink that went along with it. And it was incredible. People would line up everywhere to get it. I lived in Memphis, Tennessee. I had maybe a few times to go to New York City. And one of my first stops was to go to Papaya King because everybody went there. And we know about the hot dog stands on the corners, but this...
The Bretts.
Yeah, the Bretts. But this was something else again. Now, there are two other imitators of the original Papaya King, and they're still around. But the original one, it was just announced that it's closing, and people are just devastated. So people are lining up trying to get their last...
Well, sort of like Orange Julius. You've ever heard of Papaya King? Only one person raised their hand, I think.
Not till today.
You've heard of Orange Julius, right?
I've heard of Orange Julius.
Well,
I've been to New York tons of times, so there you go. I missed out.
You missed it out.
Didn't know. But you know what
Oh,
I heard?
It's really good for you, too, which you know, great. It's really a very healthy
I
drink.
can't say that, but it's certainly tasty.
Last night on TV, that Costco has had the same price for like years and years and years for their hot dog and refillable soda.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So for $1.50, you can get a hot dog and all you can drink soda at Costco. I think it's all you can drink. It's a soda and you can refill it at least a couple of times. And it's been that way for like since the 80s or something. So they're refusing to raise the price. And they had all these people that said they're at Costco. They never eat hot dogs. They don't even like hot dogs.
But now they're eating
hot dogs for $1.50. Yeah, they're going to have three.
So what's the best Costco story from the last 20 years? I'll give you a hint. It had a photograph attached. Do either of you remember?
No.
The weekend after Mitt Romney loses the race to be the most powerful person on the planet, he was running for president, if you recall. There's an image of him and his wife, Ann, with a shopping cart with toilet paper in it, like 14 rolls, wheeling out of the Costco near him in Belmont on his way to his car. How far they have fallen.
Are we going to celebrate National Chicken Wing Day?
Of course we are. Take it away, yes.
Well, it is National Chicken Wing Day.
Of course
I was unaware of this as well.
Did you all know that it was National Chicken Wing Day? You didn't know that either. Okay, fine. Well, that's why you're here.
We're here to serve.
Exactly.
But this Bloomberg does a lot of financial stuff. Reports how chicken wings are falling from favor because meat's getting so expensive that people are having to give up their chicken wings.
Yeah, because that's one of those nobody can eat just one situations.
Exactly. Especially with the right sauce.
It can become very expensive.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it in terms of a favorite thing at games, at tailgating, at family gatherings, at sorority meetings, I'm just thinking about all the places that this would be fabulous.
No doubt you have a secret sauce for your chicken wings,
Of
Callie.
course I do.
I know
Why
it.
wouldn't she?
I know
You know
it.
what I never
I know it.
understood about chicken wings? I mean, it's sort of a bad time to discuss it when they're going out of favor because they're too expensive.
They're
And by the
messy
way,
to eat.
They're substituting chicken thighs, which I love.
But I would think they would be the same price.
Well, that's exactly it. But
Yeah.
in any case, putting that aside for a second, can you explain to me why anybody, if they had a choice, would prefer a flat, as they're called, the long, to one of those little like drumstick kind of deals? Well, I don't get it.
Because sometimes the drumstick thing gets on my nerves. I go back and forth.
Why would it get on your nerves?
Because it's got that little cartilage at the end. And,
It does. That's the problem.
very
That
good
is a
point.
real problem.
Yeah, I come with all these important issues.
No, do you prefer the flats or the? I don't know what the other ones are called. Are they called drumsticks? Whatever they are.
Yeah, I think they're called drummies.
I
don't know what you mean by a flat.
Flat is the
part
like
that's
wing-like.
flat, not the drumstick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like chicken breast myself.
Yeah,
actually.
you don't.
There's no
Yes, I
taste
do.
in a chicken.
Well, I
Oh,
like
yes,
them.
it is, but you got to know
You have
how
to
to
have the
cook
right.
it.
You have to have the right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's where I do. I
Now,
like
what
the
do you
little chicken
use for your
cutlets.
chicken prune chicken? Your signature
Ha, ha, ha,
dish.
ha, ha. I haven't made prune chicken in like 30 years. All he talks about. I've moved on.
Which
I've
piece?
moved on.
When you were making prune chicken, what was?
Capers were very important. Capers and olives.
And
were
what
very
part of the
important.
chicken were you using?
They were chicken breasts.
Oh.
Yes, because I don't like the cartilage stuff, and I don't like the dark meat that much either.
Yeah,
Now the
I'm with
cartilage
you. I
thing.
like chicken breast.
Now I'm all upset about the cartilage thing, but that's for another day.
So what's on
what are you
under the
doing?
radar?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we have a fabulous show. We have our Latinx roundtable. We're talking about the status of the Puerto Rican Status Act, which probably, and Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is in the middle of people pressuring her to support it, and maybe it should be, maybe it shouldn't be. My contributors think that it's as close as it's come to really being a good bill, and it looks like it's going to not make it. So there's that. We're obviously going to talk about the legacy of Latinos in baseball vis-a-vis David Ortiz. I like all the cultural stuff. We have some other hard issues, but we also are talking about Ada Limon, named the new Chicano poet. I mean, she's Chicano, but she's
a buddy of Richard Blanco's, by the way. He talks about her all the time with us.
Yeah, she's fabulous. So she's a new poet laureate, national poet laureate. And also, for Black Panther fans, the trailer dropped this week.
That's unbelievable.
Right. So there is a character called Namor. he's Mesoamerican. So what Ryan Coogler and whoever the scriptwriters are, we don't know what the plot is. There is a cultural piece about Mesoamericans in the new Black Panther. And this character will represent that, and everybody's very excited about the embrace of that.
And it's not coming out till October or November, right? So it's really, talk about a long tease. It really is.
I would also refer people to a past episode I did with the chef who created the official Marvel's Wakanda cookbook. And it's pretty daggone good.
Oh, really?
That is correct.
Oh, my God. I love that.
It's pretty daggone good.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, Callie Crossy, thank you very much.
Thanks so much for being here.
Callie Crossy is host of the Under the Radar with Callie Crossy of Under the Radar, which you can catch Sunday nights right here, 89.7 at 6 o'clock. She also hosts Basic Black, which you can catch most Friday nights. Are you on tonight? Not on tonight.
No. What, Basic Black? No.
No, you're on the hiatus. That's what I thought. You guys do not do summer shows.
Yes.
So you can't catch it tonight, but you can catch it on our what do you call the thing? Not the website.
The website.
Not the website. Well, the website.
That would
we
be
also have
YouTube. That would be.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. GBH2, the GBH YouTube channel. Okay.
And also GBH.
GBH2.
On website. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, coming up. As America is poised to reclaim its mantle as a leader on the climate, is it? With this new compromise in the Senate. We're going to talk to Charlie at Senate from the Ground Truth Project about that and a bunch of other international news. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Some 16 million working-age Americans are suffering from long-haul COVID, and for many, the symptoms make it difficult to work or hold on to their jobs.
You know, I don't want to be disabled. I don't want to be taking money from the government. I'm only 45. I was going to at least work another 20 years.
That story this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Picasso, helping people buy and own a second home by bringing buyers together for co-ownership in an LLC. Picasso manages the home while clients own it. Information and current listings at pacaso.com. And Comcast, Xfinity Internet is committed to bringing speeds over a gig to power your devices while fitting your needs and a range of budgets. Learn more at xfinity.com/gig.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. As Senate Democrats gear up to pass Joe Manchin-approved climate legislation, at least we hope, is the U.S. poised to regain its global standing on climate action? Here via Zoom to weigh in on that story, Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan, and the latest out of Ukraine and Russia is Charlie Sennett. Charlie's the news analyst here at GBH. He's also the editor-in-chief of the Ground Truth Project. Charlie, how are you?
Good. Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Hey, Charlie.
We got to start with this global point, though. I'm quite concerned about the Papaya King going away.
Oh, because you worked for the Daily News for years down there.
You got it, man. 72nd and Broadway was my Papaya
Exactly.
King.
That's the one I went to, too. And Orange Julius was
right at the subway
right across
stop
the street.
there. You come right out after work. You pick up the dog. You get this special papaya juice. You know, the whole thing. I am shocked to hear that's happening. That's a global development.
It's very sad. We have an emailer who said that they went to the Papaya King every time they had a cold and was convinced that the hot dogs and the papaya drink, whatever it is, cured the cold. So there you go.
And by the way, the fact that the hot dogs were green never deterred me
No problem.
nor Charlie Sennett.
Right, and they're beef hot dogs, if I remember correctly.
Allegedly, yes.
They're kosher.
Yeah.
So when I went to the Middle East and realized there's one thing Muslims and Jews agree on, which is no pork, I no longer eat pork for the most part.
Okay.
There you
But
go.
those are beef hot dogs, if I'm not mistaken. Those were beef. Those were kosher.
I have no idea because I didn't even heard of the Papaya King until today, so shame on me. But anyway, let's get back to some of the news. Jim just referenced this possible bill that Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin have compromised on that's going to be a lot of money for climate. We have Bill McKibben on about once a month, and I just love to talk to him. He knows everything, big climate activist and one of the very big leaders of climate change in the United States. And he talked about how John Kerry, previous to this, was in a very kind of almost embarrassing situation, trying to go around the world talking about what everybody else should be doing about climate when we're not doing anything much at all here. So does this make it a little bit better for John Kerry, assuming we do get this bill through?
Absolutely. This is $369 billion package, and this huge tax incentive for all kinds of ways at working on reducing greenhouse gases so that we can save the planet from this catastrophic fate we're careening toward. It's very big, it's very meaningful, and I think it hits reset almost immediately globally if it passes, right? I mean, I hope it really does go through. I hope we really do get all of the provisions that are outlined in it. And if we do, yeah, this is a big reset. This is huge. You know, I was with John Kerry in Paris in December of 2015 at the Paris, remember COP21,
yes,
signed the accord. It was a lifetime achievement for him. And as Secretary of State, he was the one who signed it. And he walked out to the stage, behind the stage. It was literally like being behind stage with John Kerry. And the biggest moment I think he might say of his life was signing that. And that is a life commitment for John Kerry. And he thanked his staff, and then he walked with me. Remember Glenn Johnson from the Globe? He was
Yep.
Glenn told me, just wait right here, you're going to get him. And then I did, and we ended up having this amazing interview. The moment he signed it, where he said, this will work only if the United States leads. And that has been true then and now. And he also said something very interesting back then, which is it's a national security issue, which is also something that I think Secretary Kerry is really focused on. But most importantly, I thought, and the thing that really resonated with me is it has to be a vehicle through which industry in America sees huge profit. Because if they begin to invest in alternative energies, wind, solar, geothermal, batteries, all kinds of clean energy, that is going to be how it really takes off. This creates the tax incentives to ramp that business side up. And I think that's where Kerry is most focused and should be. And yes, this hits reset for him in a very big way.
Talking to Charlie Sennett from the Ground Truth Project, we go from good news to horrible news. I know, speaking of being a broken record, and I know I sound naive, I still can't believe that the West is doing as little to help Ukraine and its people as we are. I mean, in the last 24 hours, watching CNN last night, I can't remember, it was Kharkiv, I think, I'm not sure, where a woman started crying about the apartment she'd lived in for years with her family and doesn't want to go back. And you looked around her apartment, everything is destroyed. She and her husband built all this in this personal way. It was too horrifying for her to ever go back there. We have her. This morning I'm on Twitter and I see a video of a little tiny kid who can't be more than 2.5 feet tall, who hears an air raid siren, and as soon as he hears it, runs and grabs his father's leg in like abject fear. I mean, I know we're providing weaponry. I know we provided this advanced weaponry, which allowed the Ukrainians to at least make it difficult for Russians to use a couple of bridges they were using to supply their troops. But this is a slaughter of people that we're watching on TV. And it's sort of like we're looking at our watches saying, when's this going to be over? This can't be all we and our allies can do, Charlie Sennett. Can it?
It's a tough one. This is as fateful a moment on the world stage as we've had in maybe a generation, to think about how do you stop Russian aggression and how does the United States lead on that in an international context. We can't do it alone. That's for sure. You cannot impose a democracy on anyone, and you can't defend a whole country against the onslaught of Russia easily on your own. It's going to have to be an international context, but I agree with you, Jim, we have to do more. I mean, the big news overnight were the missile strikes on Kyiv. That's the first time in a long time that Kyiv's been hit. And that is distressing because that was, of course, Kyiv, the capital where Zelensky, the president, is, where the government is based, and where the Russian forces backed off because they didn't succeed in pushing forward on their offensive there. If they now are going to hit these these random and just horrific shelling of these cities where civilians are killed. It's just, I feel like it's just not going to stop. So the question is, how does the world hold strong? You know, weirdly, the climate change agreements and the pressure Russia is going to hold over the world next winter, as it gets colder and colder, and the sanctions become harder and harder to live up to. How does the world stay strong? And that's the biggest question right now on Ukraine is, are we willing to go the distance? There's an amazing film on Navalny, the dissident who was the opposition that Putin had. And, you know, Navalny's family has been touring with the film, and I happened to see the film and hear them and meet them and hear them talk about this moment in history. And Navalny says something very powerful at the end of the film. He says, you must never give up against Russia. You have to never give up. And I really wonder, are we going to give up? So that to me, Jim, is the biggest question on the table for us as Americans, for the world, and how are we going to confront this tyranny from Russia and the barbarism? And it's going to require sacrifices on our part to hold the sanctions. And it's going to be connected to energy, fuel prices. And if anyone needed any convincing as to why it's better to get out of fossil fuels than to have to do less business with Russia, that's a pretty darn good reason too. So I think in geopolitics, I think actually these two big stories we're talking about are connected. Climate change, and what do you do about Russia? One thing is you start decreasing the need for Russian oil, which fuels all of their military and fuels their ambitions globally, and I think gives them the outrageous sort of arrogance and barbarity that they show every day right now in Ukraine.
You know, Marjorie mentioned Bill McKibben earlier in this conversation with you, and in terms of what Western Europe does, he was in discussions, he told us, and he wrote a piece in the Washington Post about it, it was reported on everywhere, he was in discussions with the Biden White House about using the Defense Production Act to produce tens of thousands of heat pumps and send them either, I don't know if I remember it was free or at cost, to Western Europe, which he said would not totally fill the hole that would be created should gas from Russia be zeroed out because the Russians say we're not buying it anymore, the Europeans say we're not buying it anymore, but it would at least mitigate the need, and we didn't do that. And at the same time, when you say, well, we hold strong, it seems to me a number of our allies in Western Europe are not holding strong already, are talking about how Zelensky has to be willing to give up parts of his country that had not already been given up. And I have no expertise in this area, I admit it, but I just cannot. If it was us who was living through a situation like this, and our neighbors, Canada, Mexico, just like their neighbors there, we're sitting there saying we're sending military weapons and humanitarian aid while you're being slaughtered by the parents of children are disappearing from their lives. So it's just, and I understand the nuclear threat I understand it all intellectually. It's just, it is one of the worst things that I think we've ever seen. And I know there are lots of other things going on in the world that are horrible in Africa and Yemen and whatever, but we get to see this on TV every night, which is both good news because it's transparent and horrible news because it reveals how little, in my estimation, we're doing. In any case.
And we get to see it thanks to the incredible and courageous work of colleagues for NPR, for CNN, for the New York Times, for so many news organizations are in there bringing us the story. And I'm thinking of them. Every time I see that footage, when CNN shocks us with more footage of this barbaric shelling, or then you hear from the people, the civilians, the human lives impacted by this, that's tremendous courage. It's tremendously good work, and I'm always grateful that you and Marjorie always kind of focus on that. And it's not our focus today, but the other thing I would just say that I think is extraordinary right now is the sense that Russia's going to take every opportunity it wants to punch wherever it thinks it can inside of Ukraine. It's just not going to stop, right? So yesterday it was Kyiv. They hadn't been there in a while. Earlier, as you pointed out, that horrific CNN footage from Kharkiv. We're just going to keep seeing this. It's so sporadic. It's so indiscriminate. It's terrorism.
It is terrorism.
It's not. There's no strategic plan. It's just that they announced that it was the day, this was their famous Day of Statehood, a commemoration that Zelensky has put forward to mark their statehood, Ukraine's independence. And that's why they chose to hit. And I think we're just going to see this for a long time. This is a long war. This is not going away. I think there's ways for it to wind down with Russia controlling the Donbass, controlling the ports that it will need. And that might be, a way to stop it and settle it down, but it's not going to stop them. And we have to stand strong. I mean, I think this is as you say, incredibly complex equation. It's a tinderbox because of the idea of tactical nuclear weapons. Yeah. But we got to stand strong in solidarity with Ukraine. It's necessary to fight this tyranny. So I'm thinking we got to think as human beings, people listening to the radio right now. What are you going to do to, as Navalny said, what are you going to do to never give up? What are you going to do to stay strong? And we got to think about that.
Ground Truth Project.
So, Charlie, the Biden administration, as you know, is trying to do a prisoner swap for the WNBA star Brittany Griner, who is being held in Russia and could be there for quite some time. They're trying to trade the former Marine Paul Whelan and also the so-called merchant of death, this convicted Russian arms dealer named Victor Bout. So who is Mr. Bout?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Bout, people might know him from the Hollywood thriller Merchant of Death. And this guy was it's hard to know, very shadowy past, but a former Soviet military officer, and he's currently serving a 25-year sentence here in the United States on the charges of conspiring to kill Americans, to acquire and export anti-aircraft missiles, and provide material support to a terrorist organization. There are actually several of them that he's alleged to have sold weapons to, including some of our most profound enemies, such as Al-Qaeda. And this other aspect of his work, the work that's really focused on in the film, if I'm remembering correctly, is he also was funding forces like the FARC in Colombia, really a very dark and terrorist organization that was involved in a counterinsurgency in Colombia. So this guy's a global threat to humanity, really bad guy. That said, prisoner swaps going back to the Cold War years were pretty common, and Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan are being held in ways that are wrong, especially Brittany Griner. This is just a trumped-up charge. I don't know if you saw the footage of her in a cage inside the courthouse.
Yes, it was horrible.
And, that footage is what Russia wants to put out to the world, that we mete out justice equally no matter who you are. But the truth of it is it's a trumped-up charge. And it's directed against America, and it's using human beings as pawns in a wider game to try to release this arms dealer, who, for my money, as much as I'm in favor of getting Brittany and Paul home, that's a tough price to pay. Bout's a bad guy for the world.
This may be too much in the weeds, and I'm not even sure you know about this, but I was reading the other day, I think it was the Washington Post, we hear about Whelan and Griner. We never hear about this guy, Mark Vogel, who's a teacher, has been teaching around the world, including in Russia in the last 10 years. His case is very similar to Griner's, medical marijuana that was prescribed for some condition he has. That's all he had. Sentenced to 14 years. And beyond the outrage of 14 years, what I haven't been able to figure out, and I've tried to do a little research, why is it Whelan and Griner and not Vogel? Why is Vogel the out man in this situation? Why is he not part of the deal as far as we know, Charlie Sanders? Do you know?
I don't know. Jim, I don't know a lot about that case. I'm embarrassed to say.
Well,
I should know.
I don't either until I read this week.
But he was an employee of the embassy, right?
I'm not sure what he was. He was a teacher. I don't know what he was, but he got 14 years for medical marijuana that there's no dispute was prescribed by his doctor for a condition. And talk about, how do you feel if you're Vogel's family that you're focused on? We'll do more checking and next time.
Let's check. Okay. I'll come back to this, but I'm pretty sure he was either perhaps a former official in the U.S. government and specifically serving in the embassy in Moscow. That puts him in a different category. But I'll tell you one thing that I'm talking to the Navalny family. Here's something to ask Russia. Why don't you release Navalny?
Yeah.
Well, I can answer that question.
Yeah.
Because Putin would be out of work if they released Navalny, isn't that?
Exactly. But part of the equation here, and I hate to speak ill of our esteemed White House and State Department, but the diplomacy is weak. It's weak. Why are we not stronger on this idea to Putin very clearly? You have locked up your opposition on trumped-up charges. This man is in a maximum security prison, living in hell. Where is the initiative to free Navalny? This is something that I think we all better kind of think about. And this film, if you haven't seen it, the Navalny film.
The one on, are you talking about
CNN.
the one that's on CNN?
It's
it's great.
powerful. It's on CNN. I believe it's also available. I forget, but it's streaming. You can get it.
It is streaming.
You can get it.
I think it's just called that, isn't it? Navalny.
Navalny. Yeah, it's just called Navalny. But I think truly a powerful film to see, and we all need to be reminded of what Putin does to his opposition. So yes, these human cases, these very human cases of Americans who deserve to be released are real. But the bigger picture is, what is the world doing to put pressure on Putin to release Navalny?
Charlie, thank you very much.
Charlie, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys.
Charlie Sennett is a GBH news analyst. He also heads up the Ground Truth Project. Okay.
Before we leave, Jamie is telling us that film, the Navalny film, was produced by HBO Max and CNN. It's available on Hulu currently and HBO Max.
Thank
and
you.
it is terrific. And Navalny is...
Can you believe the courage of this man?
No, I cannot.
Or his wife?
No, I know.
Anyway, up next, our media maven, Sue O'Connell, on GOP obstruction on a vote to codify same-sex marriage and the fall of One American News and subsequent rise of the other cable outlet called News Nation. Sue O'Connell's next. Stay with us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, heart-shaped love candies and black licorice wafers made by Necco. The beloved local candy company has a rich, sugar-filled history. While its factory doors have closed, its candies and legacy live on. That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Innuendo, open now and during the Massachusetts sales tax holiday, August 13th and 14th. You can purchase Hunter Douglas's complete line of automated window treatments. Details at Innuendo Natick and Innuendo.com. And LabShares Newton, providing BL2 labs and equipment that can be customized for local biotechs working to overcome challenging and deadly diseases. You can learn more about their services and amenities at labshares.com.
Trusted. Local. News. This is 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Actually, a little bit of good news amidst the litany of horrors that is Boston Public Radio most days. The headline in the Globe, Baker signs abortion rights expansion bill into law, which is very good news. Congratulations to the governor and the legislature for doing what needed to be done. Here to take on the social norms and abnormalities of the day is media maven Sue O'Connell. The Media Maven is the co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News and contributor to Current on NBCLX and NECN.
They're already clapping.
Hello, Sue O'Connell.
They're already clapping. Look at that.
For first-timers at the library, Sue, in what is an act of grotesque embarrassment, always leads her own applause, which to me is humiliating,
Jim,
but to each his own or her
Yesterday I
own.
had lunch with some of my cousins. You know, many of them
Who are
come
always
here.
here,
They're
yes.
always here, and some that were visiting.
Yes.
And I purposefully showed up late, so when I walked in, they applauded.
Oh, how nice. Did you have to lead the applause?
No,
or?
my cousin Roberta, who organized it, went,
love
"Oh,
her.
typical."
It's great. Nice to see you
Good to
anyway,
see you.
Sue O'Connell.
Okay, Sue O'Connell, let's talk some politics. There was a vote to support veterans who've been exposed to toxic chemicals on the job. All Democrats voted for it. Only 8 Republicans voted for the so-called promise to address comprehensive Toxics Act. the Republicans, we all talk about supporting the troops and supporting the veterans and supporting the cops. I mean, Republicans are particularly big on this. What'd you make of them?
First of all, what they're talking about, when they talk about burn pits, I don't know what you think of when you hear the term burn pits. Someone which they used in the Middle East to get rid of, things that they attacked and garbage and those sort of stuff. You think, well, maybe it's a barrel or a pit. It's actually something the size of a football field that's burning, and the people around it, including our soldiers, are breathing in that air, and that's causing illnesses and cancers and all that. And Jon Stewart has been very active in trying to get coverage for this sort of not direct assault injury that law enforcement and, in this case, armed services get. This rejection by the Republicans has been shocking. It's shocking to the Democrats. I don't think that they're making it up when they're saying that they were shocked. It seems like they're playing a game, the Republicans. From what I understand, the only objection they had, and Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and Marjorie, but it looked like the only objection they had was that the ability to add an amendment, which they always have for a certain amount of time, they wanted the amendment added as the bill was going through, which doesn't normally happen. And I understand that Chuck Schumer is going to try and get a vote on Monday. But this falls into what I think is now becoming this weirdly desperate Republican action right now, where about a month ago you were thinking, oh, it looks like the houses are going to work together, the Republicans and the Democrats, and now it looks like the Republicans are terrified they're going to lose the midterms and now are resorting to playing games. It doesn't mean that this is dead, but for some reason they're playing some sort of game with politics, and of course with veterans, with the people who have put their lives on the line and are suffering from doing that, not extending protections to them.
Well, let's say one thing we failed to mention, which makes it even more egregious, 25 Republicans flipped their votes.
Right.
Went from yes
to no.
Several weeks ago to no, which is why it didn't get the required 60 votes. I want to play something that may sound unrelated, but it is totally related. By the way, Jon Stewart, who I'm not a huge fan of,
on this
was
issue,
brilliant outside the Capitol,
Yep.
saying in words that we couldn't play on the radio how grotesque this was. Here's Donald Trump. He was at this conservative event in D.C. this week, calling for the National Guard to be deployed. You'll understand why I'm playing this in a minute. In situations of unrest, including in the most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago, if he's reelected. Here is Trump.
There is a true and total breakdown of law and order where citizens' most basic rights have been violated. Then the federal government can and should send the National Guard to restore order and secure the peace. The next president needs to send the National Guard to the most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago until safety can be successfully restored, which can happen very, very quickly.
Okay, let me try to be as nice as I can. Can the American people get any dumber? So let's start with the same Republicans who flipped their vote love the military and love the veterans, yet they're voting against protecting them from this toxic stuff. Donald Trump says, when I'm president again, I'm going to send the National Guard into cities like Chicago to help out with crime, and fails to mention that he didn't call out the National Guard when police officers and others were being assaulted by his troops at the Capitol on January 6th. But the notion that they say, and he says they're pro-military and pro-cop, is the biggest fraud one can possibly imagine.
Well, you know why he wouldn't call the National Guard out in Chicago if needed? If Mike Pence was there. Like if Mike Pence was in Chicago, then and there was a crime wave that's worse.
I mean, really?
The hypocrisy of it is enraging, and also the gamesmanship. I understand that sometimes you got to do these things to get things moving forward. Both sides do it. Sometimes they don't all vote for a bill because they want to send a message. I understand all that. But when it comes to issues that I think everyone agrees on, and this is one of them, to play, gamesmanship with the health of the veterans, that it's just outrageous. And I think they're going to pay for it. I don't think that this is going to help their case.
We shall see what we shall see. We're talking to Sue O'Connell.
So we talk a lot about Fox News promoting falsehoods on television, but they're not the only ones. There are two other stations. One is Newsmax and one is OAN, One American News, which are also big on promoting things that aren't true, like that the election was stolen, and they are facing defamation suits, all three of them, from these these election machine companies, voting machine companies, that they have slandered on their stations. So, AT&T dropped this One American News back in April, and so did DirecTV. Now Verizon is dropping it, meaning that this station, which is up to its neck in all these lawsuits, is not going to be able to broadcast except on a tiny number of stations.
Yeah, I mean, they go from, I think, I'm not sure what the number was, like maybe 3 million or 1.8, a lot, million potential households that they're in, and it's dropping down to the hundreds of thousands in households. And of course, besides being under attack by legitimate lawsuits for telling lies and hurting people's lives, they're trying to make the case now that this is big business coming after them and silencing them and censoring them. This is how capitalism works, which is also shocking to me when people who are all rah, rah, rah capitalism are shocked when they're not making enough money or getting enough viewers to make it. And again, I don't speak for the carriers, but they will carry just about anything if it's going to get enough viewers, right? Fox is a good example. If we were concerned about the content, Fox would not be available everywhere, right? It brings in, it's this #1 cable network, it's got all these great ratings. Big business is happy with that. But, this network is not doing that. And I think it just really comes down to the liability of whether or not they would be able to live up to their contractual obligations if they go out of business. They have these legitimate lawsuits that could bankrupt them.
This is the Dominion lawsuits, of Dominion voting systems.
Yeah. Again, there's really not a lot of argument about what they did and if they're going to get in trouble. And if you're going to sign a contract to be carried by these carriers and you take up space, and you're going to go out of business, they're not going to want to do business with you. It's really just about the dollars and cents of business. And I don't think One American News is going to be around for much longer.
Well, apparently they're not, but in a corollary story yet again, I don't know if you read the story about how the Republican Party or some such thing in Florida did something that appears to be a growing trend, is they had a meeting and they broke with precedent and would not allow the New York Times, the Washington Post, the most mainstream media in. What's that? Politico. And that sort of goes hand in hand with the fact that what a number, mostly Republicans, in fact, I think all Republicans so far, if they're worried that their candidate can't credibly participate in a debate like Tuberville did in Alabama with Doug Jones, or Herschel Walker, who is, well, let's be nice, not ready for prime time against Reverend Warnock, they're just not going to debate him. So we don't do debates so the public can't see a head-to-head, and we don't allow media we don't like into our meetings so you can't find out what we're doing instead. And by the way, they're totally entitled to do both of those things. Anybody is. But it's a little scary, actually, about the direction we're going, no?
Yeah, it's scary, but they're not alone in doing this. I mean, this event, this big fundraiser for the Republican Party, I think it was, that often they don't want the media in the fundraisers. And a lot of those tapes that we get, remember when Romney was talking about... What was it that he was talking about? The takers,
48% or something.
That was a bartender who taped it. So these fundraisers in general, I mean, I've been excluded from a fundraiser. I worked for volunteered for an organization and set up a press avail for a Democratic senator from California who came in, and then they wouldn't let the press in because they want to say things that they don't want on the record. But this particular incident, they generally let the press in, and they've decided not to. So to your point...
Or they've let certain members of the press in. Press that likes them.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the Republican Party and a lot of these Republican candidates... you learn by sometimes getting burnt, right? You learn by seeing what you say and how it flies. But DeSantis is I don't want to use the word dangerous, but I think he's a really serious candidate for president, and the way that he is handling the press could be setting a precedent, as to your point, for how the Republican candidates
I think he's going to be the Republican nominee.
I think he is too.
I just realized, which I'm embarrassed I hadn't thought of when we're talking about Florida, we're experiencing the same thing here. We've mentioned this in the air. Jeff Deal, who's running for the Republican nomination for governor against Chris Doty, will not do a debate with anybody except Howie Carr. They did one.
Yeah, they won't do a televised
debate. And as I said,
debate.
for whatever it's worth, I've been doing this.
Chris Doughty will.
Yeah, he's agreed.
We want to be clear. He's agreed to do debates.
I want to repeat this for the 12th time. Yep. I have done, I believe, a debate with every contested primary Republican and Democrat for the last 25 years. I don't think I've had one case where a Republican or Democrat said they would not come. And this is the first, and it's a variation on the same theme. And we'll see what he does in the final. I assume since whoever wins is an underdog, if it's Jeff Deal, they're going to have to debate Maura Healey.
Well, does he?
But I don't know.
There's really, if Jeff Deal will not debate his Chris Doughty, who's his Republican challenger, does he? How is he going to debate Maura Healey? I mean, it's what's in his benefit to do it?
Well, you know why? Because I thought he was very good in the debate against Martha Copley. People didn't think he would be, and he was.
Well, also, if you want to be the leader of a state or a senator or whatever, the answer is you got to be able to take all comers, and if you feel questions are unfair, then you should say them. But in any case, we're talking to Sue O'Connell. This is one of my favorite stories of the week. So here's the big question. If your father was a member of Congress, and on Wednesday he voted against the bill that would make same-sex marriage the law of this country, and on Saturday you were getting married to your same-sex partner, would you bar your father from the wedding? Now, please answer that and then explain why his son not only didn't bar him, but when Thompson is speaking, it's his name, Congressman Thompson. When he goes to the wedding, I don't know if you've heard, we didn't play the audio because it's crappy audio. Everything he says, the crowd is applauding him wildly, like he's some great father. What was your reaction to this story?
Well, you know, I have a more measured reaction, Jim.
I'm sorry to hear that.
My parents were a mixed marriage for the 1960s. My mother was Protestant Irish and my father was Catholic Irish. And therefore, it was a major scandal. And half of my dad's family did not speak to my mother because,
is that true?
because it was a mixed marriage. And
well, she was a bookie too.
Yeah, well, that was my grandmother.
I'm sorry, it was your grandfather.
That was my grandmother.
Sorry.
I think all of us can at least name one relative who's getting married and whose parents said, over my dead body, or, you know, not in this house, or for whatever reason. It could be.
Wait, but this guy says he loves his new son-in-law.
Well, again, he's
but
a
he doesn't
Republican.
want them to be able to be married.
He doesn't want them to be able to be married. So you can love the person and hate the sinner, which is where I think Glenn Thompson of Pennsylvania is going from. And again, he's saying, okay, this is back to our earlier comment about the game playing that the Republicans are doing. A number of Republicans are saying they're not voting for or didn't vote for the codification of same-sex marriage rights, right? Because we're all afraid that it's under attack because they told us they're under attack. They don't want to vote for them because they think it's a Democratic ploy, that the Democrats are doing this to make an issue out of it. The Democrats are doing that. So I'm not defending him, but I'm not so sure. He said, I'll take a bullet. I won't vote for it. I love my gay son, which is like from Heathers, if you remember that movie. I love my dead gay son.
Didn't 47 Republicans in the House or some number like that vote for this thing?
Right, but they also wanted them to vote against it so they could use the argument that it's the Democrats who are playing the games. They're putting this forward. We're really not in danger, blah, blah, blah. So
hold on for a second.
It also is, what did he give him for a gift? That's what I would ask. If it was a big gift,
To me, what he said at the wedding was very ambivalent. On the one hand, he said he's happy to welcome his new son-in-law. On the other hand, this is Representative Congressman Glenn Thompson. He says to the couple in the toast, as they grow and as they get a little older, we also hope and pray they're going to find that one true love. So they have the opportunity to experience that, grow old with someone. Yeah.
That's out of context. He loves this kid that married his son.
What was that about? I think it meant as they get older and we hope and pray that they actually find the one true love
that they
who's
find
not this guy.
Love. No, I think it is.
Okay.
Listen, it's the business of politics. I don't know that
When they find that true love, they'll become a part of our families then, which implies
Will you
they
do me a
haven't
favor and
found
stop reading
the true
quotes
love.
from stories?
Yeah.
Is that
I think he's not at all
Sick of
happy
that.
about this. And he's going to send
You could do puppets instead if you want.
Where do they send the gay kids that they're trying to make them ungay? The camps?
The ungay camps.
The concentration camps, wherever they want to send these people. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Anyway, so as someone once said to me when their sister showed up at the party, and I was there as the same-sex couple person, don't worry, my sister's here. You're no longer the weird one.
Oh, very good.
I mean, families are like that. That's
Why are you, by the way,
families.
the thing I've known you forever.
Yes.
You are much more tolerant of these things than I am.
Yes, that's
What
why we're
is that?
such a good couple.
But why
Jim.
is that?
Because everyone is more tolerant than you are of almost anything. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Can we get to something else? So we're still here.
Yes.
Apparently Nancy Pelosi and her husband are worth $46 million.
Who
and
isn't?
she's in her 80s.
Who isn't?
So I would think she would tell her husband to cease and desist with all this stock trading.
And stop.
Scott Brown, we always give him
Yeah.
credit because he said, and he was absolutely right, that you should, when you have inside information about companies and that they may go up or down in their worth, you shouldn't have your spouse.
Excuse me, he didn't say it. It's the law.
It's the law.
Stock Act.
Right, which a lot of them are violating,
Correct.
including Nancy Pelosi's husband, with a long
66
rap
members.
sheet of stock trades.
Yeah, 66 members of Congress have violated the Stock Act.
Yeah.
So
it's disgraceful.
It is
but
disgraceful.
it's particularly disgraceful for her because she's the Speaker of the House.
And she was against the reform
She was
until she
against
was
the
forced
reform.
into it
That's
by her
right.
fellow
So
Democrats.
it is disingenuous to me to say, and I firmly think that spouses and family members, should not have to deal with all the stuff that the elected officials do. You can't control your brother. You can't control your sister. You can't control your kid who's going off marrying your late husband's wife. You can't.
So you're fine with Clarence Thomas.
But no, that's where it crosses the line.
Okay,
so
fine,
that's
sorry.
But when you have an issue when you're living with someone, for Nancy Pelosi to say that my husband did nothing,
Come on.
got no
It's
inside information from
ridiculous.
anything that I did. When he knows what her calendar of events is, he knows where she's going. It would, and they have enough money. That's
46
kind of the
million.
argument. Like, don't you think
Yeah.
you could take like a year off
Exactly.
or 5 years off while she's the Speaker of the House? But again, this also goes to the enforcement of the Stock Act and how the laws have to be stricter. I mean,
Well, here I have to call you. You're being unfair because the reason she intended to talk to her husband about it, but he was out driving drunk on that particular night.
Allegedly.
So he could not be. And by the way, that's not made up. He got
Allegedly.
a DUI kind of thing.
He did.
Can we cover one more thing? Because whatever. You really want there to be sound on one of the great stories of the past week, which
Yes.
of course is the whale deciding to get on top of a boat. Now, the best we can do here, you've all seen the video from somebody else in the harbor, in Plymouth Harbor. Plymouth Harbor it's called?
Yeah,
Yes.
Plymouth Harbor.
But I hadn't seen, till Marty and I saw this morning, the video from the boat itself.
Yeah.
Here are the two passengers on the boat. You have to listen very clearly. If you haven't seen the video yet, as soon as the show's over, check it out. You all of a sudden see fish jumping out of the water, like by the zillions, followed by this rather large creature, a whale. Listen carefully. Here are the two people on the boat.
Out ahead of
Wow.
I don't know if that really captures
No,
the
it's-
essence of it, but you get the point there. Is that like the most unbelievable thing you ever saw?
Yeah. We were once in Nantucket a couple of maybe 6 years ago, and there was a baby whale, a juvenile whale, in the Nantucket harbor by Jetty's beach, which was just amazing. And they stopped all the boats and they redirected everything to try and urge. It's very deep. That harbor's very deep. This is what you get when you have three juvenile men just hanging around, male teenagers. They see, their parents are obviously off working or doing something, and they're just hanging out, enjoying the fish. And they saw a boat, and they got excited seeing the boat. They'd never seen hey, look at that boat. You ever seen a boat like that? And then they decided to jump over the boat. I mean, I think it's a great reminder to us because sometimes we get even though we're right on the shore, we get separated from nature. We forget that this is where they live and this is what they do. And
what was great about that video is right before the whale came up out of the water, about 4 or 5 dozen fish.
Because the fish knew. The fish were like,
exactly.
we're getting the heck out of
out of here, right?
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible.
But it is, I'm glad no one was hurt, but it is a good message that,
What's the message again?
The message is that it's their room.
That's
where
place.
they are.
Their
That's
world.
their world.
That's right.
We're just visiting. And
Move
boy,
over.
if you're a teenager, man, those boats look good. Hey.
So before we go, have either of you seen, speaking of CNN films, you see Patagonia on CNN starting this
I've
weekend?
seen some of it.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It starts with this, I think it's a humpback, I'm not sure what kind of whale it is, 4,000 tons.
Amazing.
This thing weighs. Is that unbelievable?
It's amazing.
Thank you. That's all I have to
Yeah,
say.
you don't want them to hit your dinghy, that's for
No,
sure.
you don't.
No, but,
Okay.
if you are a dinghy and never mind. Won't go there.
Okay, Sue O'Connell, our media
Nice to see you,
maven.
Sue O'Connell.
Thank you very
Let's
much.
hear it for Sue, please.
Sue O'Connell is the
cousins in the house.
co-publisher
Yay.
of Bay Windows and South
Thank
End
you.
News, will be contributed current on NBCLX and NECN. Thanks a lot, Sue. Up next, continuing Live Music Fridays. This is a real treat that we are going to have every Friday on Boston Public Radio. Cambridge's biggest jazz festival is back after a 3-year hiatus, and we're going to speak to two of the gents from the Cambridge Jazz Foundation who helped make it all happen, and they're going to play for us as well. Larry Ward and Ron Savage join us next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
Some 16 million working-age Americans are suffering from long-haul COVID, and for many, the symptoms make it difficult to work or hold on to their jobs.
You know, I don't want to be disabled. I don't want to be taking money from the government. I'm only 45. I was going to at least work another 20 years.
That story this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Morningside Music Bridge, returning to Boston. The summer program shines a spotlight on young classical musicians from around the world, with concerts now through July 30th at New England Conservatory, mmb.international. And the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail. You can travel into the past through 9 towns in Plymouth County. Learn more at ssirishtrail.org, funded by the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marge live at the BPL, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. When you think of jazz and the cities where it flourishes, people like me think of New Orleans, New York. All the while, Boston is home to some real jazz giants on the international stage, thanks in large part to places like Berkeley and the New England Conservatory. Across the river in my hometown of Cambridge, one organization is aiming to bring those performers into the limelight right here on their home turf, the Cambridge Jazz Festival. 2019's festival brought crowds in the neighborhood of 14,000. COVID put a temporary pause on things, but they are back this weekend, Friday and Saturday at Danahy Park. 2 days of music for the young and the old, all free of charge. In a minute, we're going to be joined by Larry Ward, who's the executive producer of the Cambridge Jazz Foundation and a neighbor of mine. Ron Savage will join us as well. Ron's the artistic director for the Cambridge Jazz Foundation, dean of the Professional Performance Division at Berkeley, and founder of the Ron Savage Music Academy. But because Marjorie and I think the audience couldn't wait, we're going to ask them to play right away. And the people you're going to hear, we'll talk more about in a minute, are Ron Savage, we mentioned a minute ago. On drums, saxophone player Marco Pignataro. Did I pronounce your name right, Marco? And bassist Ron Madi. I got it? I'm amazed. Gentlemen, take it away. Ron and Marco, let's hear it for them. Ron, you're going to join us. Ron Savage is going to join us.
Well,
as I said,
Larry's already over here.
Larry Ward is the executive producer of the Cambridge Jazz Foundation, and Ron Savage, I introduced, join us as well. Ron, that was great. Thanks for. Does Ron have? He does have a headset.
So, Larry, let's start with you. For people that don't know, tell us about the Cambridge Jazz Festival. Jim said a little bit about it, but tell us more.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having us here, and welcome to your wonderful audience. I think it was 2013. Ron and I met for about 20 minutes and then set up a jazz festival, and 5 months later, we had a jazz festival in Cambridge. But we've been going since 2014, starting out in Central Square. Would have been ecstatic if 300 people showed up and 2,500 people showed up in the pouring rain, in hurricane conditions, actually, that first year.
And it was a hurricane that morning.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
But when Valerie Simpson came out, the sun shone.
You know, Ron, what I said in the introduction is true. Margie and I learned this a few years ago. I think it was Chris Lydon we talked about at the time. There is a really rich jazz history in this city that I'm embarrassed to say most of us are unfamiliar with, no?
Yes, it's you know, even beyond Berkeley, New England Conservatory, there's just been a tremendous history. If you go back, the great Roy Haynes came from Roxbury.
Johnny Hodges.
Johnny Hodges. Oh, God, we heard him play. It was unbelievable.
Johnny Hodges, Harry Carney, Paul Gonzalez. I mean, you could go on. People like May Arnett. I mean, there's just a tremendous history of not only jazz musicians, but dancers, tap dance, jazz dancers. Just there's a cultural richness here. My teacher, the great Alan Dawson, the late Alan Dawson, was one of the founding faculty members of Berklee College of Music and had a tremendous effect on the world of music. So that's part of our goal. I mean, when we present our festival, we decided early on that we were going to focus a lot on locally based musicians who, I mean, I used to joke that I played, 50 different countries around the world and almost never played in my own backyard.
Well, a lot of your performers, Larry, exactly fit that bill. That they're locally connected, but with huge international reputations, right?
Terry Lynn Carrington, straight from Medford, 3 Grammys later.
Wow. So what's going to go on this weekend? People get over to Dennehy Park this weekend in
Oh,
Cambridge.
my God, it's so exciting. This weekend, first of all, it's great to be back after a 2-year hiatus from the dread. But we have a fantastic show that we're going to be putting on. Starting tonight with our very first gala, which will being built to support the Jazz Festival. And we're going to be honoring our outgoing city manager, Louis Di Pasquale, over at MIT. And then tomorrow it kicks into high gear with just some phenomenal musicians, and Ron being the music director, he's going to talk to you a little bit about it. But in addition to the music, we have some great elements to our festival. We have a kids area. We've started a jazz museum, which is fantastic. it's just very exciting. We have the food court, and we have a beer garden this year. Hallelujah. I mean, it's hard to go to a jazz festival and not have a beer garden.
Larry Ward, just to be clear, tomorrow and Sunday, you can just show up, right?
It's a free concert for everybody.
How about the deal tonight at MIT?
The deal tonight at MIT, excuse me, it's a gala. So tickets are $100 to get in, but we're going to have live music at the gala as well. If you want to get a ticket, you might have to call me at this point. I can get.
Is that really true?
You guys are neighbors. Is Jim a good neighbor, by the way? I mean,
That's my boy. You know he's good.
Walk and
I got to get him in
doing
there.
the right things over there in Inman Square.
Don't embarrass me. By the way, for whatever it's worth, you drive by Larry Ward's house, he's always on the porch in a meeting. No matter what is right? With somebody, whether it's Ron or somebody else, he's plotting something good for our city and our community.
It's working.
Yes. Ron, before you tell us more about who's playing, can you guys rejoin your colleagues and play again?
Sure.
And then you come back.
We'd love
They're going
to
to play a couple of times. And I would introduce what you're playing, but this is all
all
live.
We just decided about 2 minutes before we play.
What you're going to play?
So the first tune was Sunny Moon for Two by the great Sonny Rollins. And now we're gonna slow it down, mellow out. I know it's the end of the week. We're gonna play a beautiful standard entitled In a Sentimental Mood by Duke Ellington.
Oh, great.
So while you're getting over there.
So you can do that when you're professional musicians and you played in 50 countries around the world. All you need is 2 minutes to put the set together.
Do you play, by the way? What's your deal, Larry Ward?
Somebody's got to raise money.
Okay, I understand. You have another function here. Okay, one more time. Let me introduce the players. They're going to play again before we leave the segment. This is Ron Mahdi, Marco Pignatoro, and the aforementioned Ron Savage. Take it away, gentlemen.
Marco Pignataro on the saxophone, Ron Mahdi on bass, and Ron Savage was on percussion. That was gorgeous.
Is there any better way to spend a Friday afternoon in the library, listening to music like this at the Newsfeed Cafe?
I feel really cool, Jim. You know,
I
don't usually feel so cool.
Hey, Ron, even though the three of you are guys, there are a lot of women playing at this deal, yes?
For sure.
Tell us a little.
So our headline on Sunday is Dr. Chelsea Green, who's a fabulous violist and violinist and vocalist. We also have Zahili Gomorrah playing on Saturday. We have Anna Borges, Rosita DeSamba. We have Gabrielle Goodman doing a tribute to Aretha Franklin. So, you know,
That's microphone. That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Oh, there we go.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Do I need to repeat that?
No,
Okay. So, actually, when we started, one of the things that we talked about is we wanted to make sure that we had representation for the community.
Yeah.
You know, and it just so happens that I know a lot of really good jazz musicians that happen to be women. So it's not, you know, it's actually not that hard. So
the deal is you can just show up at Dennehy Park with your blanket and your cooler and your potato chips and just sit out there and listen to you guys and gals.
And you can come and we have food trucks there. We're working this year with the Center for Music and Autism. So we'll have a opportunity for children who are neurodiverse to get engaged with some music activities. We have what we call an instrument zoo in the play area for children, where we're going to have some little jam sessions to allow people to make music. We have a seniors tent in case it gets hot, and we want to make sure that we keep our seniors safe. So we really put a lot of thought into just making this a place where people can come, hear great music, and be in community, and just relax without worrying about cost or anything like that.
Or the fact that democracy is about to disappear. Anything, you have to worry about anything, right?
Well. So here's the thing. Hold on. Okay, let me finish. So we were listening to the early part of your show, and I was thinking, we need jazz more than ever.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
We need jazz. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
Larry. What are
Larry.
you going to say?
No, I was saying we also doing some work with MIT this year. They're going to do a few exhibits and how they combine science with sound and everything. So that'll be exciting. So it's really an exciting program.
And by the way, for those who have been, thousands and thousands and thousands of people come to this. This is really
this
terrific
is cool.
community
It's a big
deal.
park.
This is cool.
Thank goodness.
I want to give a special shout out to Robin at the Office for Tourism for coming on board and really helping us get that whole global feel to it and everything. I think we're going in the direction we wanted to go in, which is a destination festival. Starting with one day, now we have a 3-day event. And
That's great.
You know, it's been a lot of people being involved in that, making it happen.
Congratulations to both of you. Ron, before you go rejoin your colleagues, what are you going to say?
I was going to say, Larry says there's a lot of people. He's really the engine, right? I get the fun stuff. I pick all the musicians and all that, but
And he has to raise the money.
Yes, he's really the one like sweating all all
I
year
appreciate
round.
you, my brother.
Okay, so Ron, why don't you go back there? One more time, they're going to play us out of this segment. The players you've heard twice and now a third time. Ron Mardee on bass, Marco Pignataro on saxophone, and Ron Savage, with whom we've been talking, on drums. You guys are terrific. One more time. Let's go.
saxophone. That was Ron Mundy on bass and Ron Savage on percussion. You want to hear more of this great music with many more musicians to join them? Go out to Dennehy Park Saturday and Sunday for the Cambridge Jazz Festival. Larry Ward is the executive producer for the Cambridge Jazz Foundation. Ron is the artistic director for the Cambridge Jazz Foundation, dean of professional performance division at Berkeley, and founder of the Ron Savage Music Academy. And that is Saturday and Sunday, Dennehy Park in Cambridge, for free. Coming up, it's summer, it's Friday. At least to us anyway.
You guys are great.
It just seems like nobody wants to come to work anymore on Fridays. Maybe not at all. We're going to open up the text and phone lines up next at 877-381-8970 to hear from you. Is it time to give up Fridays as a work day?
Yes.
At least every Friday in the summer and maybe all year round. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
A recent study from the New Republic found that black farmland lost during the 20th century due to U.S. government policy was worth more than $300 billion. How land is a site of both dispossession and resistance for black folk. I'm Melissa Harris Perry, and that's next time on The Takeaway from WNYC and PRX.
This afternoon at 2, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Johnson & Wales University, helping prepare graduates for careers in growing fields by offering over 100 undergrad and grad programs and 2,400 internships per year. More at jwu.edu. And Stoneleigh Burnham School in Greenfield, Massachusetts, now offering a 1-year voice and empowerment certificate program for 10th grade girls. More information at sbschool.org/voice-10.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I don't know if we can top that, but we'll do our best. The end of the traditional Monday through Friday work week has never been the most productive, but some have argued that's never been more true than it is now in this age of forever remote work and hybrid offices. Or to quote a recent piece in the Washington Post, this is a quote, "The last day of the work week, once synonymous with long lunches and early departures, has increasingly become a day to skip the office altogether." According to data from the security company Castle Systems, which runs those car tap systems to get into office buildings, a measly 30% of workers swiped into offices on Friday during the month of June. 30%. So we're opening the lines for the rest of the show. Are you embracing this wave of workers avoiding work at the end of the week? It's not officially a 4-day work week, some of us, like me, have been pining for, but it's close. And if you do go into work on Fridays, do you really give it your all, or are you just twiddling your thumbs for 8 hours to evade the suspicion of your boss? The number is 877-301-8970. That's for tweeting and calling. If you're listening to the show while you're supposed to be working, definitely give us a call. We'll keep your identity a secret from the bosses, we promise. 877-301-8970. Marty, we've been doing radio for 25 years, pretty much. I've been arguing for the 4-day work week forever, long before a pandemic.
You're very consistent.
Would you not agree, who are often resistant, primarily because I support it, but would you not agree if there was ever a time to get rid of this? Nobody's doing anything on Fridays, let's face it.
Well, you do think that one of the great things about having a 4-day work week instead of a 5-day work week is that everybody complains about the commute, whether they're going to drive into Boston for a long way, whether they're going to take the T and get stuck in a runaway train or have a fire on the T takes so long to get someplace. The childcare costs, the gas costs, all those things would be so much less. Now that everybody's working remotely and we've proven that we can work remotely, I mean, maybe it's time to say, let's give it a try. Let's give it a try, especially in the summertime. I would say here at GBH, Jim, we're all done at 2 o'clock.
I didn't know that till today. Did you know that?
I'm done at 2 o'clock every day, but I guess my coworkers are now done at 2 o'clock, and it's a special
It's a summer thing. It's
summer
great.
thing. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, you're nicer than I am, but be honest here.
What?
How many people who say they're working from home on Friday are working from home on Friday?
Well, I think if they're working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they can slough off a little bit on
I'll
Friday.
give you the
Don't
answer.
think?
Nobody. Nobody's doing it. And so rather than being in a position to have to lie and BS your boss, everybody'd be happier. They're doing it anyway. we've proven people can work remotely and be productive, at least in most cases. So let's just do this. So we want to know, what do you do with your Fridays? You got to tell the truth. We're not going to expose you. Do you show up at the office? By the way, there's a line in the story in the Washington Post, which is my favorite line of the week. Did you see this one?
What?
About what gets people to the office?
Free food.
Free food. They said
Free
exactly.
food. Yeah,
the woman who's some
absolutely.
HR person.
Yeah.
If you feed them, they will come.
Yeah, that was
it
a great
says.
line, I
and
thought.
There's also an app that some businesses are using, which allows you to find out who else is coming to work, because theoretically, the thing that is number 2 right after being fed, but what attracts people to work is that their best friends at work are
Yep.
showing up on a particular
Yep.
day so they can hang out, that sort of thing.
Well, that's one of the sad things about the return to the office post-pandemic is, it almost seems to be, to me, like you got to have everybody there, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then maybe not Monday and Friday, because otherwise you're coming into the office and nobody you want to hang out with is fun to hang out with because they're not there. So I think it's a great idea. Amber from Worcester says she likes working on Friday. It's usually quiet. I get more done, especially this Friday. The president of the company gave everyone a Mega Millions ticket. How's that?
$1.25 billion tonight. My company, this one's unsigned, gave everyone summer Fridays off, and it's been a huge boost for morale, but I'm in sales so often, still have to work and get resentful of my colleagues. 877-301-8970. If not now, when? If we can't deal with this, no Friday. And by the way, everybody's got I was off for 4 days. I did most of the days, and I found it incredibly satisfying. I did all the crap that I have no time to do during a normal work week. That is really satisfying. Can you imagine if you had an extra day, if you didn't have to lie your way through Fridays, but you could actually just not show up, not be guilt-ridden, not worry you're going to be caught, that sort of thing, how different your life would be?
I got a pile of mail. It's about a foot high. I could use some time off to work on
By
that.
the way, for new listeners to the show, or relatively new listeners
I know what
to
you're
the
going to
show,
do. I know what you're going to do.
how many times did I ever come to the Boston Herald?
You came once and you opened all my mail.
Okay, I came once to the Boston Herald. Marjorie had a rated column, and so while she was sitting in a rated column, we had to go somewhere together, I decided I would open her mail, which was taller than I was. So you open like a 10th piece of mail, and they say, Marjorie, the story you wrote about that family was so
terrible.
moving. Here's a check for $100. The only problem is the check for $100 is 7 years old. So in any case, it gives you an opportunity
Jim,
to catch up. Marjorie,
thank God I'm not working there anymore. I'd be in big trouble.
well, remember what they did to your health insurance?
That's right. They took it away. They
Thank
tried
you.
to take it away.
Danielle in Marblehead, we're talking about getting rid of Fridays. Welcome to the show. Hi.
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 So I feel like way more pressure on Fridays now that I'm working from home.
Why?
Because I'm constantly trying to, get ready for the weekend, make sure everything is done and tied up with a bow, and whereas when I was in the office, it was just kind of like a twiddling my thumbs, like, oh my gosh, when am I going to get out of here?
So wait a second. So you work harder at home on Fridays than you did at work?
Oh, totally. Because I feel like I have so much more to prove now that I'm at home.
That's a good point.
I know that my bosses trust me and that my work is getting done, but I don't want anybody to ever doubt me.
Wow. You're a responsible person,
But I get just what
Danielle.
you're talking about, Danielle, because when you are working from home, you want to make sure that your boss doesn't think you're sloughing off all day long. So you get your work. I know you're going to say, I wear an apron.
You
and
wear
I'm
an
baking the
apron.
Thing. Well,
What are you wearing, an apron for the radio show? I would assume you're wearing an apron because you're cooking.
But you know what? What you can do, you
Marjorie's
can throw something in
embarrassed,
the
by the way,
oven, you can
Danielle.
take
She's
something
turning
out,
red.
you can clean the counters off, you can
She's
throw in
not
a load of
making eye
laundry.
contact with
Your
me.
life, at least if you have 1 or 2 days when you can work from home, and I hope we always do, makes your life a lot easier.
Danielle, if they said to you, nobody's going to work any more Fridays, you'd be fine with that and you get all your work done, right?
It would probably just be insane on Thursdays then.
Well, so be it. It'll be the same on Thursdays,
Yeah.
and Fridays you're free to come to the library and have fun and listen to music. Danielle, thank you for the call. 877-301-8970.
Joan from Rhode Island says her company implemented summer hours this year as a measure to keep people from quitting. So now we work 9 hours from Monday through Thursday and 4 hours on Friday. And so far, a majority of her fellow employees are taking advantage because lots of people don't even show up on Friday. They work remotely.
You know what that's called? A compressed week. There are two kinds
Compressed
of 4-day
week.
work weeks. There's compressed, where you do the same 40 or hours, or 36 in that case, in 4 days. And there's the reduced work week, where you only work 4 days. And if you know you're only working 4 days, in my opinion, your morale is going to be so high, you get everything done, if not more, in those 4 days. I know I would.
Yeah, well, I used to work Sunday through Thursdays, and it was great because, well, it wasn't really great because you had to kind of get into work early on Sunday, but the good part was...
Yeah, what was the good part?
Well, you had Friday off. You could do all the stuff on Friday.
But you had to work Sunday.
Well, I had to work Sunday.
That's
That was
the
bad.
problem.
That was bad.
So
But
I think you should think that through a
But
little
at least having that day, that weekday
Mm-hmm.
off is when everybody else is working for the most part, so you can get a lot of stuff done.
So is it Babatunde? Is that your name in Brighton?
Yeah, Babatunde.
How you doing, Babatunde? What's going on?
I'm good. How are you both?
We're good. Thanks for calling. What's up?
Yeah, so I think it just gives more time with friends and family. You know, you're going through the week, and you just got 2 days at the end to take care of errands, grocery shopping, and socializing with friends and family. So it opens the week up a bit more. Also, can get some cars off the road, make things a bit less congested throughout the week. And I'm just not sure that you need the full 8 hours every day as like a block time to do work.
I'm with you. I am so totally with you. Babatunde, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Kate from Duxbury says her nurse friend employer now provides 3 mental health days, which is pretty nice.
And they can be used on Fridays.
Well, they cannot be used on Fridays.
Oh, I thought they couldn't be. Oh, they can't be.
Yeah, she said they can't be used
but
on
nurses, firefighters, flight attendants often work those 3 practically around-the-clock days, and then are off for 4 days. They're sort of living proof that this thing works, even though it's got to be torturous doing those kind of hours, don't you think?
I don't think yes, I do, but I don't think we're ever going to come back to where we were.
Oh, you think so?
No, I don't think we ever are, which, as we know, can be sad in some instances, because we talked, you weren't here when we were talking about Bromfield Street down by Downtown Crossing, how all these places have gone out of business there, and how the traffic in downtown of people walking around, going to lunch, going out to the bookstore, going here and going there, they're not there anymore.
Well, you know why?
Because no one's coming back to the office.
But there's a deeper reason
What's
that I think you got to think about. If you want to go to Bromfield Street, you get on the subway, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to jump in the Mystic. You jump in the Mystic River, you get all wet, you got to dry off, you got to figure out how to get another mode of transportation to get downtown. By the way,
we did disgrace ourselves the day Charlie Baker was here because we didn't know enough of the details about
I knew it. I asked him one question about the woman jumping in the river, and then I moved on like it was another day in the life. Hey, Governor Baker, someone jumped out of a subway train that was on fire into the Mystic River. What do you think about that? Okay. Let's move on. What do you think of the Celtics?
You know something? I just got a message.
What is that?
It says that you shouldn't be talking about my apron, Jim, because you are wearing shorts.
And how does that affect my performance?
I think earlier this morning we went out to meet the high school kids that were here earlier.
They were appalled?
Well, they noted that I was in a nice, colorful skirt, high heels, not high heels, but whatever you call these things.
Shoes.
And you were in shorts.
Well, let me just tell you.
They didn't think the decorum.
No, it's interesting you brought that up. There's a difference. Yeah. I am wearing shorts, that is true, but I am not baking a cake during the show like you are with an apron. Is that not a significant difference?
Well, you just zip it into the oven, you zip it out of the oven. Caitlin from Clinton says, please stop saying working remote is wonderful for parents, and she's got a good point. She's been home with her kids since the start of the pandemic. It is hell, says Caitlin. The people who are struggling at home do not have time to call in and tell you how awful this experience is, and she's got a good point.
How about that woman who called Mayor Wu that was trying to have a conversation with Mayor Wu?
Mommy,
and the kid in the background was screaming the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it is very difficult with small kids to be home and trying to get your work done at home. I had a few bad experiences with that when my kids were little. I was trying
Didn't
to
you call in? I was listening to you one day before I hardly knew you. Didn't you call in David Brudnoy's show? Or was it Imus one day?
It's Don
Imus. Your
Imus.
son picks up the other phone. What happened to there again?
I had my big opportunity. It was a national show. I'm all excited. He's calling me about the John Kerry race and the Bill Weld race, and I'm thinking this is my big chance to get on national radio. And my son picks up the phone
the other
downstairs.
Phone.
Yeah. We all still had landlines, and he says, "Mommy, I want my Eggo waffles. I want my Eggo waffles." And Don Imus basically said he dismissed me immediately. He said, "Go take care of your kid. Go take care of your kid." And that was the end.
Was that your last appearance?
Well, it was a long time before I got back on.
877-301-8970. We're talking about Fridays off. This survey from the Castle Group, whatever the hell they're called, 30% of people show up at the office on Fridays. And I'd like to hear from one of the 70% who theoretically are working remotely on a Friday. I would guess they're not getting a huge amount of work done.
Kate in Cambridge wants to remind everybody that lots of people do not get to work from home. Hospital workers, custodial
that's a
staff,
very good point.
teachers, hairdressers, lots of people don't be. People that do physical work, cleaning up places, they don't get to work from home.
Well, by the way, they're not immune from the benefits of a 4-day work week, though. Whether you're working remotely or working in person, a 4-day work week would apply to them just as beautifully as to a remote worker.
Listen to this from Kristen from Boston. She's a supervisor in a lab, and we give everyone a 3-day work week in the summer with 3 days with 12-hour shifts, and everyone still calls out on Fridays. But boy, how about that? Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Well, you have a short memory. When I've discussed that with you in the past on the radio, you said you would never want to do that. It'd be too exhausting. Okay, now, years after we've had that first discussion, if you could work 3 12-hour days and be off 4 days, would you not do it?
Well, again, the problem is that the small children. You know, what are you going to do? You're going to have the kids with the babysitter from 7 to 7. I think that'd be a little bit difficult.
You've seen
know what
that
I mean?
Japanese television show? What's it called? Old Enough? Is that what the show is called?
Yeah.
With a 3-year-old?
They send the 2-year-old off to the
Have you seen this, by the
7-Eleven.
way?
Yes, I have.
They literally
The little kid
give the
is in
3-year-old a
diapers.
shopping list, and he's walking down the highway to the supermarket.
With a little flag.
Exactly, so
he
they
has
can
a flag
be seen.
so the kid could cross the street. I mean, what are they, crazy? Can you imagine sending a 3-year-old down to the CVS to get you a pack of gum? I don't think so.
I waited until my kids were 4.
Okay,
but
we're
they
out
did
of time
do it.
here, Jim.
We are?
Yes, we
that's
are.
what the music means.
Yeah, that's what the music is.
sorry.
So thanks everybody for listening to another edition of the Boston Public Library. Thanks to people that came down to the Boston Public Library.
Thank you all for coming.
We really
appreciate
appreciate people coming here. If you haven't had enough of us, you can keep up with us 24/7. We have our podcast. On Monday, we're going to be joined by Attorney General Maura Healey for another segment of Ask the AG. She's going to be with us from 11 to 12, taking our questions and yours. We'll also have journalist Will Sennett, Red Sox coach Katie Crawl, plus the Revs and our poet, Richard Blanco. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Mackenzie Farkas, Rebecca Tauber, our engineer, John the Claw Parker, our executive producer, Jamie Bologna. Our on-site engineers of the library today include Sai Patel, Colin Cockrell, and Angelica Marrero. Next week on Greater Boston, the debates begin. Oh, Jim, that's you.
Can I tell you what we're doing?
Sure.
We're doing 2 debates. We're doing every primary race debate except the Republican governor's race. I told you Jeff Deal will not appear, even though Chris Doty said yes. We'll have the 3 Democrats running for AG Monday night, their first debate. Tuesday night, the 3 Democrats running for lieutenant governor, their first debate. And the following week, we'll be doing what's left, auditor and Secretary of State. So we will be doing every single primary race, with that one exception, over the next 2 weeks. I'm really looking forward to it.
Wow, I'm really impressed, Jim. That's
You
a
are?
lot of work. Yeah, it's
Thank
a
you.
lot of work. Glad
Thank
you're
you.
doing it,
Appreciate
not
that.
me.
Okay.
Anyway, I am Marjorie Egan.
I am Jim Browdy.
Thank you so much for
Wearing
tuning
shorts.
in. If we wearing shorts.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. And we're all impressed, Jim. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy.
Have a great
Thank you
weekend.
so much for tuning in. Hope you can tune in on Monday. And as Jim said, I hope you do have a great weekend.